Hi chat, can you hear me over here? I'm really low energy today, so I'm snacking on bread to get my vibes up while I talk to the people on TikTok. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay, good. All right, okay. So, I'm going to put this here so it's like I'm talking to both of you at the same time. Bad vibes, hype up, hydrate. I do have water. I'm real low energy today, guys. I think this might actually be Arctic Fox. I think. Okay, hurry. Alright. I've got my jug. I've got my bread. I've got my coffee. I listened to some autistic guy who's obsessed with weapons talk about missile systems all morning while laying in bed. I feel like I'm pretty good to go. Harleen Queen, the app where you can say David loves Pol Pot without being misunderstood. Speaking of, we uploaded part 3 of the Armenian genocide episode on a podcast last night. And I cut out a part where David goads me into ranking the diasporas in order of most favorite to least favorite. So, you guys know it's there in spirit, but I cut it out. You can guess who the best and worst were. You can definitely guess who the worst were. Oh, yay! Thick almond milk. We have a baby. We have Call Me Baby in the chat. No, weapons are tomorrow. Weapons are tomorrow. The episode name, it's the most recent one, and it's the Armenian Genocide Part 3. Bread. Bread is great. Easy to spread propaganda for authoritarian dictatorships when you live in a Western... You hit all the buzzwords. You hit them both. Most people, they only pull out one. They pull out authoritarian or dictatorship. You, though, you're built different. You got them both in there. Authoritarian dictatorship. Look at you go. Genuine. This is the funniest part. The people on TikTok are like, you might be a CIA agent. Yes, the person who teaches you how to look up the CIA funding things and what the CIA is up to is actually secretly a CIA agent. That seems more realistic than acknowledging the fact that you might just be stupid. I'm getting the energy back. The bread's working. That seems more plausible. Somebody is like, hey, here's all this stuff the CIA does that's really, really bad. Here's how you can check who the CIA funds, how it works. Here's where you can pull it up on the CIA's website to learn about these horrible things that the U.S. government has done. And you were like, am I wrong about the world? No. The person telling me this is secretly a CIA agent. How the fuck does that even make sense to your stupid ass brain? How the fuck does that even make sense to your stupid ass brain? It's like almost impressive. It's impressive the level of delusion the average Western mind goes through to make it through the day. Right? What is that? It's crazy. You will invent whole conspiracy theories that don't even fucking make sense rather than acknowledge the fact that your government is bad and lies to you. Which seems pretty fucking common sense to me. I don't know. Alright, 55 stream take. Main Rob, welcome for your 55th streak. The bread's working. I'm getting real amped. Yeah, CIA agent. Definitely, that makes sense. They're reach maxing. They are. Oh, it's so funny. You're not even Western, bro. I don't believe that for a second. Vote for Ramsey Robinson. Vote for Ramsey Robinson if you're in California. It's all Ramsey Robinson. There's nobody else even worth talking to. Hassan is going to Cuba? That's really good. When's Hassan going to Cuba? Larry, is today your birthday? I'm pretty sure today's Larry's 40th birthday, everybody. Yay! Happy 40th! I'm so excited for you. My 40th birthday's in a few months. I'm getting amped. I'm going to try to be in China for it. Where's the North Korea Juche King? We have a Juche King and a Juche Queen. Our Juche Queen is Julia. Okay. Most Marxist-Leninists support land back, but it's important to note that land back isn't just one movement. Every tribe has their own interpretation of it. How would you feel when you couldn't leave your own state, Madeline? What are you even talking about? Where do people come up with this shit? What are you talking about? Girl, if I was subjected to one of the harshest global blockades in the world, I probably wouldn't love it. Was that your question? Yeah, Yeah, everybody wish Larry a happy birthday. Mm-hmm. The himbo is joining the flotilla on the 21st. Oh, okay, cool. Nice. Nice. Good for him. That's exciting. Girl, the blockade! Alright. Yeah, I'll probably, I might be able to stream a little while I'm in China. I think that would be fun. You can't leave your own country because you had pot in 2004. Are you Canadian? That sucks. I'm so sorry I'm laughing. I'm laughing at the absurdity of Western hypocrisy. I promise, not at your specific condition. It's just, like, how are we a real fucking planet? It's crazy. Is the sound quiet? Is the sound quiet, guys? I can move the microphone near me more. August. So you guys, come join us over on Twitch. We talk about current events on Twitch, and we go into more detail than we can on here. I really think, as somebody who's made short-form content for 6 years, and pretty good at it, I think short-form content's bad for the planet, and it has contributed to a mass dumbing down effect. So I think long-form content is the only ethical way to consume social media anymore. So I think you have to come over here, join us on Twitch. We spend 2 hours going over current events in the news every single day. Come join us and learn things. We talk about a lot of things. We learn a lot of things over there together. We talk about the historical context for current events. People in the Twitch stream chat, crazy smart. We've got the best chat on the planet. It's the hottest chat. It's the smartest chat. They're teaching me shit all the time too. It's great. First time chat, welcome Kiko Y2K. Welcome to the smartest chat on the planet. So, you know, I think it's a really good opportunity to actually learn things, and especially if you are not in a position where you're able to join a socialist org, meet with people near you. I mean, if you are as well, you should, I think it's still fun to come join us. But if you don't have that near you or you're not able to, I think this is probably the closest you can get online to reading rooms, is like joining Discords, joining, you know, communities like this to talk about left-wing politics. It's really important that you don't learn about left-wing politics in a vacuum by yourself and you bounce ideas off of other people. The whole point of left-wing politics, right, Marxism, is this idea of dialectics. Like, this is how the world is understood through dialectics. And that's why Mao also put so much emphasis on talking to each other. Get into a room sometimes and just yell it out and figure out problems like that. And that's what I think is really, really important to do. So come on over. We do that kind of stuff over on Twitch. You'll learn about the world, and we do it through the lens of discussing current events. So come. Join us. How many people do we have over here right now? Do my low hydrate. I'm so low energy today. Self-learner. Was Lutheran Christian, had the most insanely reactionary ideas about communism. Yeah. There's a lot of those on Twitter. That's why when I posted the thing about commodity fetishism, so many people were like, haha, you fool. What does exchange value have to do with commodity fetishism? And I was like, holy shit, I can tell you did not read Marx in a group or like bounce this off with anybody. You're just sitting alone in your room coming up with these ideas, and then people on Twitter are yes-anding each other with the worst takes on the planet. That's also the case with the ACP. They have the most bizarre, surreal readings of communist texts I've ever seen in my life. You really don't want that. Is it too quiet? Hold on, let me see. Let me see. What do you think? Is it better now? Is it better? Yes, I got the packages. Okay. Yes. I got them, all 45 of them, and I put away like 10 of them, and I live streamed while I did it, but I kept getting my live stream restricted. Oh, there's a troll. It's not, is Toby here, or is it someone else? Okay, so, you guys, come join us over here. Major Switch, just ask a question. Okay, we talk about current events here. Wait, how many people do we have in chat on Twitch right now? 156, it's pretty low. We can wait. See, you can tell when I'm low energy, no tank top, no views. You need high energy, tank top. Boob and energy. Boob max, energy max. And that's how the people come. That's how they come. My shirt's even see-through. Doesn't matter. Sleeves. Doesn't matter if it's see-through. Sleeves. Should have been meaner. I should have been meaner. Listen here, you dumb fucks. Is that working? Listen here, you dumb fucks. I am not clicking on it. I am not getting Rickrolled again. No more YouTube videos from you people. I cannot be trusted. I'm too gullible. Okay. So you just signed up for Twitch. Okay, it seems a little overwhelming, but it's really not. So just search Madeline Pendleton with no underscore and you'll find it. And once you search for somebody, it actually will teach you intuitively kind of how to use Twitch. That's what I did. I just like found one person, searched for them, and then like started figuring it out from there. And you'll get used to it. And a lot of people on our Twitch stream are new to Twitch too. So if you don't know how things work, people they're nice and they're helpful and they try to figure it out together. So do it. Who the fuck's Benny? Who the fuck is Benny? First time chat. Welcome. My low energy is your high energy, and my high energy is your after 10 energy drinks. I just switched over. Yay, Darth Gormanos. Toby went to Larry's stream yesterday. How'd it go? Larry, I'm so sorry we sent we have a pet Trotskyist in our chat. You know, he's demonstrated immense growth. He started out as a social democrat, and now he's become a Trotskyist, so we think we can fix him. But I'm so sorry. We took our project and we sent it to you. Okay, Biden used to be a white nationalist. So Biden used to be a segregationist, for sure. Just downloaded Fish too. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Pogtopia. Time out. Pogtopia. Shut down. 2:20. All right, we're good. Okay. Okay, I'm getting off of this. Because you guys, I'm so sorry. TikTok, I'm like so sorry. I say this all the time. I don't mean to be mean. This app is Gen Z Facebook. Like the same level of boomer brain dad Facebook takes is what happened on this app now, especially since the Seattle Oracle. Like it's really, really, really bad. So I don't mean this to be mean, but it's the truth. The worst people on the internet are on this app. So come join us over on Twitch. It's way better. It's way better. I mean, it's crazy that I think YouTube has a better community than TikTok now. And some guy on YouTube just spammed my comments the other day calling me an ugly cunt. And I was like, this is preferable. You know what I mean? Preferable. Okay, so I'm going to hang up here. First time chatter. Yay. A lot of vagina. Welcome to the chat. Okay, so I'm hanging up with you. We'll see you over on Twitch. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome, everyone. You have 2 articles, and I'll take the new leader of Iran, one from New York Times, one from Middle East Eye. Do they have a different kind of framing of it that would be interesting to look at? The framing comparison? People is nice around here. That is so true. Gen Z are getting to the age where they feel like they can speak authoritatively while having learned nothing. Exactly. It is wild. It is a very boomer mindset. I mean, Gen Z, like, look. So many of Gen Z are interested in socialism and communism, and I love that. The ones who aren't, though, you know, it's socialism or barbarism. They are falling headfirst into barbarism at an accelerated speed. They are diving in. It's like a nosedive to barbarism with some of them, which is very, very, very challenging. Now, that obviously doesn't mean that my generation, millennials, didn't have, like, weird right-winger or proto-fascist freaks, right? We gave you guys Vice magazine, and who were the Proud Boys, the guys who walked around in the Ben Sherman polo shirts with the tiki torches and were like, we are new Nazis. So it happens in every generation. I don't mean that to specifically knock Gen Z, but Gen Z is more polarized. So you get less kind of middle of the road liberals, and you get more socialists or straight up fascist weirdos, right? LA relevant. Ooh, okay. Looking. Trump announced a hostile takeover of LA's wildfire rebuild. Collaboration ensued. Interesting. Why is the anarchist group in Dallas-Fort Worth putting FRSO on blast? They were asking other groups like DSA and CPOSA not to take part in their events. Anarchists do that. I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but I can tell you anytime I've seen anarchists like distribute pamphlets saying something bad about a socialist org or post things on the internet, whenever I look into them, they're nothing burgers. They're nothing burgers. And what I will tell you is this. Even if something does happen between people in an org, the purpose of an org is not to manage interpersonal dynamics. The purpose of an org is to advance class consciousness, right? And do political activism. So if people within your org had some sort of interpersonal issue that occurs that could be violent, even if that happened, that is not the org's responsibility to take that on, right? These issues are usually handled privately. They're usually handled swiftly. And they're handled in a way to maintain the safety of everybody in the space. But that doesn't mean that they are going to publicly become judge and jury. And the way that anarchists want to handle things is very disorganized. It's very chaotic. It's very carceral. Anarchists, and I say this as somebody who used to do anarchist organizing, anarchists are the most carceral people I've ever met in my life. They want blood. They want blood from everything. And more than that, they want to demonize Marxist-Leninists. So I would just remember that is a bias that anarchists have. They also want to constantly derail organization efforts to focus on interpersonal issues, right? And it's sometimes, maybe it is a real thing. I'm not going to say it's real or fake. I've never heard of that. But what I can tell you is I have seen things like this that are minor issues get dramatically misrepresented for political motive, which is very, very scary. So you have to be skeptical of that. And I've also seen issues that were real, that were actively resolved by the party, just not in a public way. And that was to everybody's satisfaction, and it was pretty good. And people are like, no, I wanted to see a messy ass Instagram notes app post about it, which is just like, that's not professional, and that is not going to advance anybody's political causes, right? So, you know, just remember that. There are weird biases going into this. For me, from a revolutionary org, if I joined a socialist org and I saw them air out something like that publicly, that would make me less interested in joining that org. That would make me think that I cannot take that org seriously, because I'm there for one reason, and that is to advance the cause of socialism, right? So I think that's interesting to think about. Oh, you just found me. Oh yeah, you're on TikTok. Hi, Case Sitter. Welcome. So, you know, I think that anarchists don't get that. They don't understand organization. They don't understand that certain issues are resolved internally, and they don't understand the boundaries between what is the responsibility of a revolutionary socialist organization to take on and what is not, right? They don't really understand the parameters, and that plays into how they respond to these things. They're very cop-like. They're like, you have to murder this person in front of our eyes, or we will not trust that you have taken accountability to deal with this issue correctly. Anarchism solution, Molotov everything, Marxist gamer 0, and then say that you're a prison abolitionist. Yeah, we don't need prisons. I'll just shoot them all. They say anarchist position on everything. So it's yes, I think this is a good point, Theory Bra. Only white anarchists are probably like that. Black and indigenous anarchists, I mean, there's a different tradition and a different history there. That's definitely true and worth noting. So I think it's just a little weird. Sorry. Case Sitter. I'm looking at everybody's chat. Okay. Anarchist Zionist goes crazy. It's like, but this is what happens too. Like, the anarchists will end up siding with the State Department over and over again because they are so eager to just denounce a communist country. They're so eager to red fash, and you're like, what are we fucking talking about? What are you talking about? Yeah, sure. The country that defeated the Nazis is just as bad as the Nazis. That fucking makes sense. These people are, and that's why we say deeply unserious. Deeply unserious, right? Wreckers. Bell, I have faith in you. Go fix that anarchist. Go fix that anarchist. Someone in the TikTok live talking about how their ex was abusive and PSL did nothing about it. I'm like, no, this is kind of where I'm like, I don't know what you think the org is not going to manage your life. Like, the org is there to advance socialist consciousness and educate the masses. That I think that a lot of people do not understand the parameters of the org or the org's function, right? Now it could be one thing if you're like, I don't feel comfortable with this person being in this space, right? That could be a conversation you have with your org. Totally, sure. But also, like, when those situations get complicated, there might be a certain time where you really have to ask yourself, is this a situation I expect my org to realistically be able to resolve? And think about the goal of the org and your goal in the org, like what the revolutionary capacity is, and think, is this something that's realistic for them to address and take on, or is this not? And does this actually detract from our mission? And is this something that needs to be resolved elsewhere? And a lot of people don't have that. Yeah, they treat the org like a church. That's kind of true. Very, very interesting. Okay, yeah, so Ice Peach Tea says, you love the local anarchists, but it sucks to feel like a lot of personal stuff gets hectic rather than focusing on organizing. Exactly. They also think the org is cops. I mean, yeah, it's just like a whole, I don't know, it's very, very weird. They also feel like, kind of to me, like a lot of times they act like we've already won. They act like the org is the government structure that's there to replace the existing government structure. And meanwhile, it's just like 10 people in a room lots of times who are planning a protest. Like, this is not a developed government structure yet. That doesn't mean we don't have the capacity to do that very clearly, but it's like you're acting like this system exists as an alternative to the existing system that is there to provide you with all of the basic things we need for society to function. And the reality is that your local socialist org is probably not capable of replacing your local government. Just real talk right now, right? We're in the stage of revolutionary activity where we were trying to educate, we were trying to build class consciousness, we were trying to get people on our side. We have this really strong uphill battle here in the United States, right? We do. And it's like gonna take a long time to unpropagandize people about socialism. And that's what we're trying to do right now. So yeah, I've just seen a lot of people, and this is something also when I was in anarchist basis, it's like you're gonna throw away your whole movement because you couldn't exercise any sort of like discipline and understanding what the immediate task is in front of you, and that is not this organization group you're in, whatever it is not a replacement for the entire life you live, right? It can't be the judge, the jury, the provider. It can't do all that for you. That's not the function of it at this point, right? So a few people have said it sounds really quiet. Let me see. Is this okay? Can we hear this? Is this better? Half the people say their audio is normal and half don't. Okay, sounds good. Okay. Is your volume normal, chat? Yes? Okay, better. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard. And that's not to say, like, I get it. If you're in a space and you're like, I don't want this person around me, this is like really, really, really gnarly and scary, right? But I've had that happen in friend groups too, right? Where you're like, this person, like, I've had a person who stalked me and then started dating one of my friends. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable being around this person. And then my friend was like, well, I'm not going to break up with my boyfriend. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to remove myself from the situation then, Things like that happen in friend groups. But I think it's also important to remember, like, if you join an org, that's not your friend. I mean, you can be friends with people like that, sure, but you have a goal. Like, you have something you're trying to advance, and that doesn't mean you need to put yourself around people who make you feel unsafe, right? If that happens, certainly, if you feel that it's not being addressed, leave and go elsewhere. It's important that you feel safe, right? But I think just people blur the lines. They don't understand that it's not a social dynamic. It's not a government dynamic, right? It's a different dynamic. And so I think you have to go into it without understanding. I say please turn it up. Everything's like as loud as it can be right now. I just feel like maybe my microphone isn't working. Is it too loud now? Is it better? It might just be because I'm low energy. I'm quieter today. Yeah, maybe. Better? Yes? Okay. I just turned up the gain really, really high. All right, sorry. Usual volume for you. Okay, I'm sorry. It's starting to get loud. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. It's not okay. I just have a Yeti Blue mic. I received all the packages at work. Totally. Okay. So, hi everybody. Sorry I'm really low energy today. We're still going to get through the stream though. It's just going to be like a chill stream, Maybe you'll like it better. Maybe I'll be less annoying. Maybe I'll be like a chilled out Cali vibe. I think that'll be it. So just to wrap up the previous conversation, I really do recommend that you join an org. I really do think you should. I really, really, really do think you should. And I think while it is fair to expect to never be in a position where you feel unsafe, I think it also is important to remember the capacity of the organization you're in and the boundaries of what their role actually is. That's what I think is important, to remember all those things in context, if that makes sense. Just to put a little bow in that. And some things are very relative too. I've heard things about orgs and I've looked them up and seen the actual story of what actually occurred. And I'm like, oh, this is a nothing burger. The org handled this way nicer than I would have. I would have been like, this is nothing. Go home and call your friend and talk about it. Like, this is not for us. And some of these orgs that are getting blasted for shit, I'm looking and I'm like, damn, they were really nice to you. I would have been like, what the fuck? Why are you telling me? So,
Real Marxist-Leninists would start every stream with an operatic performance of the International in Mandarin. I'll work on that. Okay. Am I about to get fucking rickrolled? I'm getting rickrolled again. Okay, no. Okay, I'm not. We got a little fun one here. We're gonna start with this. We're gonna do a little palate cleanser.
Vos que sos venezolana, cantate algo de allá del Caribe.
Bueno, chamo, si me lo pides así, te voy a cantar una salsa, pues, para que aprendas algo de geopolítica global, moviendo tus caderas, chicos.
Salado.
Esta canción es del Caribe y tiene enseñanza de nosotros, que no tenemos la sangre más caliente que tú, pero que sabemos mucho sobre los hábitos de los yanquis, pues.
Impecable.
O de los gringos, viste que hay diferencias, pero al final, en política exterior, son todas la misma vaina.
Son todos iguales, vos.
Hay un país del norte que siempre nos tira para atrás. Le gusta el petróleo ajeno e invadir junto a la OTAN.
Crearon el béisbol, Coca-Cola y Tío Sam, fentanilo, pollo frito, Disneyland y Ku Klux Klan.
Ese coro yanqui de mierda solo saben saquear con la CIA y su complejo industrial y militar. Yanqui de mierda, váyanse pa' otro lugar. Quédense en el norte y no nos jodan más. Mi mamá me decía, ay, mija, estamos mal.
No, bueno.
Renova tu pasaporte y a Miami vamos ya.
Yo tramité una visa, pero el American Dream era para pocos y a mi país volví.
Todo el mundo yanqui de mierda, solo
Oh, wow. That was amazing. I loved that. We all loved that. I think we all loved that. Thank you for that. That's a bop. Okay, so let's get into our normal stream. If you're new here today, what we do is we call this the Double Down on the News. So we take a look at the news and current events, and we pull up an article that interests us, and we read through it together, and we discuss any contradictions in how things are presented, any historical background that might be necessary to better understand this topic, and we take ourselves on a little journey to really do a deep dive into whatever's being discussed. We do this here 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and on Thursdays, we do Theory Thursdays. So, we're going to get into it. Does anybody have any stories they would like to submit for consideration? The way this usually works is you can submit any news stories you've seen that you think might be good or interesting for us to go over, and we do a vote. Everybody gets to vote basically to decide what we want to talk about today. Yeah, we're super nerdy here. Yeah, we're real fucking loser hours over here. Today's Tuesday. Weapons Wednesday's tomorrow. But we're still going to do current events. We're only going to talk about a weapon for like 5 or 10 minutes. Just because I feel like there's a lot of context I'm missing when I'm reading about the war in particular that has to do specifically with weapon technology that I'm not familiar with. And even like my lack of understanding of nuclear enrichment dramatically changed my understanding of how bullshit the claims were against Iran. I always stood with Iran. I totally even fell for they're working on developing a nuclear weapon because I didn't understand the process of nuclear enrichment. So I feel like this stuff is really helpful for us to understand the war and what's going on. So we have 2 think pieces about Canada's new weapon procurement process from Tiniest Boob. I'm opening. Anybody else have any other submissions? Anyone else? Yes, we try. Welcome, Kauti Moose. 5 or 10 minutes with ADHD. Are you sure about that? No, I am not. Smash Ultra 19. Of course I'm not sure about that. We shall see. Okay. Trump's fucking Instagram? Wait, Trump's on Instagram? I'm looking it up. Get your submissions in while we look at Donald Trump's Instagram. This fucking silly bitch. Wait. Okay, yes. I do 5 of my friends who are very obviously not Trumpers follow him. Is it this one? What is it? The White House post. Is it this one? I'm gonna look. Oh, shit.
I said, quote, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and all I'm doing is keeping my promise. Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat, not for a long time anyway. We want to keep it that way. As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. On the very first day I came down,
That's us. We're the terrorist regime controlling the flow of oil all around the planet. Like, girl, what? We literally abducted a fucking oil tanker. We just blew, like, some oil shit up. Like, he's describing us. This fucking silly bitch. Like, what? It's crazy. Okay. Weird loser. Weird fucking ugly loser. We hate him. The White House TikTok post? No. I don't know. Does anybody have a link? We could look at it while I'm opening all your links as you send them for news articles, by the way. I'm not ignoring you. I'm seeing them. I'm on top of it. I'm clicking links. We're doing it. Yeah, we stole the oil going to Cuba like 2 months ago. Exactly, Marxist Gamer Zero. We forced Iran to fucking close the Strait of Hormuz and affect oil distribution all over the planet. California to say silly bitch. Weird loser. I called Pete Hegseth on Twitter the other day a cucked ass Eichmann. I've just been going in. I've just been like just insulting and cussing at world leaders on Twitter. It's been fun. It's been really fun. I recommend it. You just read Kat Black's blog post about me? I know. And now I want you to know, after you've read that this is now the person who says you should not bully or judge leftists for not voting for Democrats. That's wrong to do. She just came out with that take. Which is probably interesting after you read that blog post. Hegseth is a cuck. He's a Nazi fuck and a cuck. This is kind of Rickroll. Okay, I'm gonna watch that. Okay, Carr, against my better judgment. That is the only Rickroll I will be accepting from now on. You must Rickroll liberals with that in my honor. Yeah, Malrish, I did a bunch of racism for my landlord mansion. Exactly. Her most viewed TikToks are all about me. Of course, that's true. And that's the thing. It's like, you make a video spreading some bunk ass disinfo about me. You're gonna go viral, babes. So if you ever need cash, make a video saying weird shit about me. I approve. Just do it. Make some money. I'm just trying to get Rickrolled. You actually got Madeline rolled. You got Madeline Pendleton rolled. MP rolled. We have not voted yet. All right. So I've got some options. We have some things going on here. I'm going to try to organize these. We have Iran, new supreme leader. We have something we're going to open in a second. Trump versus LA. We have Canada's new defense investment agency. Interesting. More Canada. And then we have Ecuador. People have been asking about Ecuador. Ecuador interests me immensely. We have the EU-USA messy breakup. Ongoing, part 3. And we have some Gaza updates. Okay, so I feel like we've got Iran. Virgo, if you're ready. I don't know if Virgo's ready. Ecuador. Bye, Wrecking Child. We will miss you. Canada. Europe. And I guess we'll do domestic. Those 5. And we'll table Israel-Gaza update. But that could kind of be domestic, actually. Let's open that. do we think? Yeah, if you only see Kat's recent video, you can swear she's very reasonable about everything. Yeah, she's an insane person. It's crazy. Ecuador submission, another. Okay. Yep, still keeping it pinned. You put a poll up. Yay. Okay, the poll is up. Everybody, you know the rules. Vote or gulag. We will gulag you if you do not vote. Vote. Democracy is compulsory. You must vote. It is your civic duty to the chat. Yeah, also, like, saying the thing, this is the thing that liberals always try to do. It's still the same thing. You're dismissing voices from marginalized communities. And I'm like, have you ever considered the fact that people from marginalized communities are people and some of them have fuck-ass bad politics? And, like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to fucking listen to Condoleezza Rice. I'm not going to fucking listen to Candace Owens. Like, you can't convince me that I'm supposed to take on the most violent, white supremacist, bloodthirsty, psychotic fucking politics in the world because one time a person from a marginalized background said it was okay. Like, that's crazy. And I am definitely not going to do that. And it also, like, is so dismissive to the fact that most communists, most socialists that I interact with in the world, certainly, but even ones that I interact with are not white people. They are not white people. So it does this thing where it makes it out to be that leftist movements are for this privileged majority, when in reality, they are liberation movements for the most marginalized and vulnerable people in our societies. And it is so dismissive to the work that those people have put into building our movements, very often when white people did not come and did not care. Like, look at the Black Panther Party, right? They built that, and then white people were like, we want to help afterwards. So it is so dismissive to that as well. And I just really fucking hate that. Yeah, I'm not going to listen to fucking Colin Powell talk to me about politics. I'm not. You're right. It's just like that. Oh, it's wild. Okay, yay, Ecuador. Okay, yes. I'll pull up some. Let me see if I can find some from FRSO, and I bet PSL will have a good little explainer. Both of those on Ecuador history. We're looking at what our two biggest Marxist-Leninist... what is PSL's newspaper called? Liberation News, that's what it is. Marxist-Leninist orgs in the United States have to say about this. Ooh, we have some good stuff here. We're getting some backstory. Is that what's winning? I think it's winning. The Palestine story was actually about an American doctor, so it would have been more of like a United States story, I think. So we have some backstory from FRSO from 2007. 2001. Let's see what they have. Okay, actually, I think it's just Liberation News has the most about Ecuador. So vote win is ended. It is officially Ecuador. FRSO has been around for a long time. They've been around for a long time. They are a very serious party. They do good work. Let me see when they were founded. 1985 is, so they're older than me. They are 1 year older than me. Ooh, I've got some interested stuff. Yes, a United Fruit Company was in Ecuador, for whoever asked that. And I have some interesting context for this that we can read. Give me a few minutes to come up with a little mini lesson plan for our day for us to get started on this. So, my knowledge of Ecuador is not super intense. So if anybody has more knowledge of Ecuador, feel free to jump in while we are talking. It will be very, very useful for us, I believe, to have more of a group roundtable discussion about this. I know some basics, and that's about it. So we've got some info in front of us that's going to be helpful. I bet if I'm familiar with how Liberation News does their writing, they're going to have a whole history somewhere of what's been going on in Ecuador. That probably includes the United Fruit Company stuff. So I'm going to try to find that as well. We've got the oil spill. Okay, let's take a look. Ugh, everything's behind a paywall. I've got a JSTOR account. I'm gonna try to pull this up. Hydrating. I'm August 17th. So yeah, 1986. Lovelace, I would say if you have a Marxist-Leninist org near you, join that instead. But if you don't, and the only thing, I think it's very important to join something near you so you can actually participate. So if you don't have anything super near you, except for DSA, join DSA and join a Marxist caucus within it. I know that there are people who do good work within those caucuses. So let's see. I'm looking for a good story that's like short. All I'm finding are like blips and then like books. So I'm trying to find something that's like a little middle ground. We're almost there. Oh my God, I found a guy from Ohio State giving a talk. Nobody wants you to read this. You must buy a book. You must listen to a video. You must purchase a PDF. We're searching. We're so close. We're so close. Access to your institution. I don't have an institution. We're so almost there, guys. I promise you. Okay, we've got a summary of a book. We found the middle ground. It's a long summary. Okay, so let's get into what's going on in Ecuador today. You have an institution. I need your institution. Well, I think I found something that we'll see. So, the Trump administration has launched U.S. military operations in Ecuador, and this is a story from 6 days ago. So critics have questioned the increasing scope and deadly consequences of U.S. anti-narcotics operations in Latin America. Now, obviously, we all know the context for anti-narcotic operations in Latin America is that the United States government has a huge history of creating narcotics operations in Latin America, right? We know the CIA famously worked with drug traffickers throughout Latin America. There's the famous Gary Webb story that came out specifically about how the United States facilitated drug trafficking from Latin America to the United States. Gary Webb was then found with 2 gunshot wounds to the head, and it was marked a suicide. So we know that we have evidence very, very, very strongly suggesting multiple links from the United States government to drug trafficking and drug trade throughout Latin America. We also know that many people in Latin America associate the growth of drugs, if it does exist in their country where they live, with the U.S. government, right? So we also know, though, that a lot of Latin American countries actually have no problem with drugs. Venezuela was a great example of this. Famously, the UN came forward when Donald Trump started coming up with these allegations about Venezuela being some sort of narcotics hub. And even the UN, again, who usually sides with the United States, who's just disproportionately influenced and swayed by the United States, even they had to admit that they had no clue what Donald Trump was talking about because they've not really seen a major issue with drugs in Venezuela since Chavez, I think, is the one that expelled the Americans there. And when the Americans went, so did the drugs, which is very, very interesting. So, all of this talk that Trump has been drumming up about narcotics in Latin America is obviously pretext for foreign invasion. It also, we have to talk about the racialized way that we talk about brown people in general. I think about this a lot, and we've talked about it kind of a lot, which is where Nixon, when he was early in his campaign, or early in his presidency rather, he realized that he was getting a lot of pushback from two specific types of groups. And one group was counterculture group, right? The hippies at the time, the counterculture group, the anti-war movement. And the other was black activists, black communities. So he knew he could not make it illegal to be a hippie or to be black. So what did he do? He launched a war on drugs. And then what he did is start to aggressively associate black people and hippies with drug use. And let's see if I can find this actual quote about this, because this is what Donald Trump is doing with Latin America. So if I can find this actual quote, it's going to be useful. So here is the story that this is reminding me of. Nixon advisor admits war on drugs was designed to criminalize black people, right? After President Richard Nixon declared a war on drugs in 1971, the number of people incarcerated in American jails and prisons escalated from 300,000 to 2.3 million. Now imagine this on an international stage. After Donald Trump declared that Latin America was full of narco-terrorists, the number of operations going on in Latin America started to... I don't want to say that we weren't doing things in Latin America. The United States has always been engaged in covert subversive operations throughout Latin America to destabilize it. But, you know, we've seen an uptick, certainly, in what's being reported and done publicly. Right? So, obviously, the Washington Post has reported here African Americans are far more likely to be arrested for selling or possessing drugs than white people, even though white people use drugs at the same rate, and are actually more likely to sell drugs. So this idea that all of the brown people are crazy drug addicts and drug pushers, right? It's not true. White people are more likely to sell drugs than any other ethnic or racial group in the United States. So we know this isn't based in reality. So what is it really about? So Nixon's domestic policy chief, John Ehrlichman, admitted that the war on drugs was designed to have precisely this impact on the black community. In a 1994 interview, Ehrlichman said, "You want to know what this was all really about?" And here's what he explained. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. So at this time, remember, the anti-war left, who was it? There was hippies. Today, who is that? It's the leftists. That's the communists. I think about this every time I talk about politics in a live stream on TikTok, and the first thing people do is accuse me of being a junkie, right? Or being addicted to methamphetamines. And obviously, I'm not a person who demonizes drug use. I think that drug addiction is a healthcare issue. And I think that drug use is something many people engage in normal recreational ways throughout their life. So it's hard because I'm not going to take a strong defensive reaction to that. I'm not going to be like, how dare you fucking accuse me of using drugs, because some people do use drugs. I happen to be a person who doesn't enjoy drugs. I don't do a lot of drugs. I've never struggled with issues with drugs. But a lot of people do. And the idea that responding in that aggressive, like negative, would actually continue to contribute to the demonization of people who use drugs is just something I can't participate in, right? But it doesn't matter. The idea is that they associate you with drugs and then they make drugs an evil, bad thing or a thing that discredits you completely. And that's the process. That is the playbook. And it is the exact same thing that they are doing with Latin America. So Nixon had two enemies, the anti-war left. Today, that's our leftists. We're still the anti-war left, right? And black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. And it's also important to note many people in the black community were also anti-war left, right? We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So think about this. The same technique is being used today. And Donald Trump, he's fucking old school, right? He's old school. He remembers this technique. And he's using it against Latin America today. So remember this. They're bringing it back. They're bringing back the idea that all of the people of color are on drugs, addicted to drugs, or trying to sell you drugs and ruin your neighborhood with drugs. They're all drug trafficking gang members with guns and drugs. And I think the anti-war left, that the people telling you, hey, the U.S. government is not somebody who should be trusted, that the U.S. government is doing these bad things, that they are all also addicted to drugs. And yet they sound crazy. They're saying crazy things because they're high on drugs. So you shouldn't have to listen to them. That's just a crazy person high on drugs. So this same technique is being used, basically. Yeah. And Yeah, it's like a direct quote. Yeah. Pretty wild. So this is what's going on. Now, when we say, looking at this, critics have questioned the increasing scope and deadly consequences of U.S. anti-narcotics operations in Latin America. This is the same thing. They know they couldn't make it illegal to be Latin American or to not want to give over your resources to the U.S. government. So they just decided to launch a war against drugs and say that all of Latin America has a drug problem. And that's what they tried to do. Now, getting into the article, the United States government has announced it is collaborating with Ecuador to combat terrorists in the South American country. On Wednesday, U.S. Southern Command, the military unit overseeing operations in Central and South America, posted that joint efforts had already begun in Ecuador. On March 3rd, Ecuadorians and U.S. military forces launched operations against designated terrorist organizations in Ecuador, General Francis Donovan said. The operations are a powerful example of the commitment of partners in Latin America and the Caribbean to combat the scourge of narco-terrorism. Now, I expect two things are happening here. After we kind of did the episode talking about the Mexican drug cartel and how that was actually, turns out, mostly a Mexico operation that the United States launched on to try, or globbed onto it to try to get credit for it. What we're probably looking at here is, first of all, pressure. Donald Trump is saying to Latin America, if you don't play ball with us and do what we want to do, you're going to end up like Nicolas Maduro, kidnapped next to your wife in a New York City jail cell. Is that what you want? And so that's part one. And part two, this kind of thing lends legitimacy to the narrative that the Trump administration is trying to paint of Latin America having a massive drug issue. And number three, it makes it look like the United States is tough on this kind of crime, this kind of organized drug crime, when in reality, insofar as it has existed throughout Latin America, very often the United States has not only condoned it, but helped create the situation. So all of these things are kind of obscured when you hear, oh, okay, so now the United States is doing a joint operational task force to track down drug traffickers, I guess, in Latin America. It gives legitimacy to Donald Trump's claims, and it makes it so that you don't really think about the fact that the United States has had an ongoing role in drug sales basically ruining Latin America in many places. Frank Lucas claimed to smuggle heroin into the United States on American military planes, almost as if they were collaborating with the process of flooding black communities with drugs even back then. Claim is disputed, but guess who disputes it, right? And it's the same thing about the Gary Webb article, which if you guys haven't read the Gary Webb article, maybe I'll post a link. This man died for this reporting, right? And so it is, I think it is important to read. And when it came out, his publication stood by it. And then afterwards, due to pressure, they basically caved and they're like, no, he lied. And then his whole reputation was ruined and dragged through the mud for what realistically was good and solid reporting that nobody had a problem with at the time. So this started out as an article. I'm going to try to find the actual article. It was like a series that came out. It's wild how much of a transparent lie the narco-terrorism claims are. Was Nixon this obvious, or were we just on the lookout for this shit second time around? First time chat. So they used to have a little bit more of a sales pitch, like when we talk about the war on terror. They did do a press tour. They used to do sales pitches for this shit. They used to really try to sell it to you, but we could still see through the bullshit. And a lot of people still fell for it. So a mix of both, I guess. I think that Donald Trump is a little lazier with his sales pitch. But I think that it's always been pretty flimsy. It's always been very flimsy. Okay. Oh, here we go. The New York Times, I think, might have it. Yes, we have the New York Times here. Dark Alliance, the CIA, the Contras, and crack cocaine explosion. So this is the article where Gary Webb talked about this, and again, at first everybody stood by his reporting and they were like, this is good reporting. He was pressured by the United States government to retract his story. They would not, right? And then after enough pressure, everything suddenly flipped, and all of a sudden, I think he got fired from his job, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on that, but he ended up losing his work in one way or another, and everybody turned on him and basically made him a pariah, and then he died because of this, right? So, I'm going to give you guys a link to this. And it is a multiple part multiple different articles came out. So you might find multiple articles, and it was a kind of a series he did. I think it was for the Mercury News, if I remember correctly. Let me double check that. Yes, Mercury News. And for San Jose Mercury News. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay, here's the link for the Gary Webb story to give you a little back info on this as well. So this statement about the operations are a powerful example of the commitment of partners in Latin America and the Caribbean to combat the scourge of narco-terrorism. And remember, narco-terrorism, that's a term Donald Trump just kind of invented and ran with. This statement was accompanied by video footage of military helicopters taking off, as well as black and white aerial surveillance imagery of figures boarding helicopters on the ground. The announcement appears to be part of the U.S. President Donald Trump's broader push against criminal networks and drug cartels in Latin America. But again, we know this is not something the United States actually cares about. This is something the United States actually facilitates in many situations. And it is just the justification being used in Latin America to violate their sovereignty and do regime change operations. The scope of the Ecuadorian operation is not yet known, but several U.S. news outlets have reported that it is so far limited to supporting Ecuadorian troops through logistics and intelligence, citing government sources. Remember, this is where we always say, not our guys. How does the United States, engage in other countries now? We don't send our guys in. We get guys on the ground there, and then we train them and fund them and tell them what to do. And then if something goes bad or wrong, we have plausible deniability. We get to say, well, those weren't our guys. We don't know them. They're not our guys, but they are our guys. This is the current way that American imperialism plays out in other countries. Big bad, not our guys. At a Wednesday news briefing, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt praised the joint operation. Together, we are taking decisive action to confront narco-terrorists who have long inflicted terror, violence, and corruption on citizens throughout the hemisphere, she told reporters. Now, if you've read the Gary Webb piece, this is particularly insulting. And I believe the Gary Webb piece does not focus on Ecuador specifically. This is more Latin America as a broader area. So since taking office for a second term last year, Trump has moved to label multiple prominent cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, a term typically reserved for armed groups with political aims. His administration has paired those labels with an increasingly militaristic approach to combating drug trafficking, including through the bombing of suspected smuggling vessels. So remember, drug use in the United States prior to Nixon used to be considered more of a healthcare issue, right? Oh, you're struggling with drug addiction, you're struggling with alcoholism, it's a healthcare issue, right? It's very sad. You're a victim of this circumstance. It's not great. And then what does Nixon do? He criminalizes it. Now you're a criminal. Now you're an evildoer who's bringing a seedy element to good white American Christian values, and you're a criminal element that needs to be punished. What is Donald Trump doing? The same technique with any sort of drug use or drug trade that does exist in Latin America. All of a sudden, you are now a narco-terrorist. You have political aims. You are now a threat to our national security. You're not just selling drugs. You're trying to overthrow the U.S. government, and that's justification for us to bomb you, to bomb boats, to do whatever we want in your region. So this is how we blow these things up to justify making them legitimate, quote-unquote, targets of our military offensives, even when they are completely illegitimate. Critics have pointed out, however, that drug trafficking is considered a crime under international law, not an act of war, and that such lethal actions can be considered extrajudicial killings. At least 44 aerial strikes have been carried out against alleged drug smuggling boats and other maritime vessels in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific Ocean. The result has been 150 known deaths, and the identities of the victims have yet to be confirmed by U.S. officials, and no charges against them have been made public. 2 survivors who were recovered from an October attack on a submarine were quickly repatriated to their home countries, Ecuador and Colombia, where they were subsequently released. Some families from Colombia and Trinidad and Tobago, meanwhile, have claimed that the deceased were fishermen or informal workers transiting between Venezuela and nearby islands, not drug traffickers. And I really do feel like fishermen often get slaughtered by the United States government. Narco-communists. That's us. That's the new Nixon War on Terror. We're narco-communists. Did they say that? Did he really say that? I believe he would say that. Narco-communists. But this is what we did in North Korea too. That story that got leaked, right? I'm a nuco communist. I'm a nuco narco. Really? Narco-communist? Wow. That's pretty strong. I'm really liking it. Did you guys see that the liberals realized that tanky doesn't offend us anymore? And the left comms realized that tanky doesn't offend us anymore. So the left comms have started calling us campists. That's their new go-to, is just campist. Right? And I tweeted, I was like, that's not going to work either, babes. Give me a whistle. Whistle, whistle. Camp's in session. Let's go. I'm the counselor. Yeah, we're campists. And this is a term that has, again, like tanky, some historical connotation, which is just the idea that you don't condemn Iran or places like Russia, for example, because they are fighting Western imperialism and you view that to be a greater evil, which I'm like, that's just called using your brain and not getting heavily propagandized about America's political enemies. As a gay man who loves camp, why would you hate being called camp? Everybody loves to be campy. That's the response. It's going to just be like, I love camp. Yeah, that's their new... Yeah, red fash, but that one doesn't work either, because then you're just like, the communists literally defeated the fascists. What did you do while that was happening? Where were you? Where were you when the communists were defeating the fascists? Right? Yeah, the camp is being against imperialism. Exactly. That is literally the camp. But sorry, I thought of this because of the North Korea thing. But yes, the story recently came out that was leaked about a botched U.S. Navy SEAL operation off the coast of North Korea, and who ends up dying? A bunch of innocent North Korean fishermen. Right? So the fishermen are always on the parameters, obviously, of the coastline, and unfortunately that makes them sitting targets to be slaughtered by American military. Marx, religion is the opiate of the masses. Zizak, opiates are the opiates of the masses. Narco-communists, we will sell the opiates to the... No, narco-communists, we will give the opiates to the masses. Opiates are the human rights of the masses. It's very, very wild. Camp lesbian communist. So, the Trump administration has also launched military actions on Venezuelan soil, one in late December, a second on January 3rd. In both cases, it justified the strike as law enforcement actions against drug traffickers. The first targeted a dock allegedly used by the transnational gang Tren de Aragua. The second culminated in the abduction of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was subsequently imprisoned and charged with drug trafficking and weapons charges in U.S. federal court. This is honestly so fucking insane that this could even happen. This is so crazy. Like, I still cannot fucking get over the fact that we did this. It's batshit crazy. This is not normal. I mean, nothing about the United States is normal. We're a hellscape dystopia, right? This is not a way to live a life. But this one, I'm like, that's new. That's new. There's no precedent for that I'm aware of. That is new. So that operation was likewise condemned as a violation of international law, with experts at the United Nations warning that it was part of a broader and deeply troubling pattern of unprovoked military aggression. But this is funny to me because I'm like, it's not. We're just very public about it. We have always had broad and deeply troubling unprovoked military aggression around the world. That's why the rest of the world chants death to America. That's not a new phenomenon. They didn't start doing that last week, right? They've been doing that. I wonder why. So I do think it's very interesting watching the press kind of freak out because Donald Trump is just out in the open saying it, so there's no plausible deniability for them, right? They used to be like, I don't know. Who knows what's happening? I don't think that's really us, though. The president said it wasn't us. I don't know. Now they can't do that because Donald Trump's like, yeah, it was us. What are you going to fucking do about it? So the press is now basically figuring out how to deal with this, and they have to market this as all being deeply unprecedented. The only thing that's unprecedented about most of it, though, is the very candid nature with which our government administration is talking about it. Nicolas Maduro, I do think that's unprecedented from my lifetime anyway. I'm like, damn, that's pretty crazy. Usually we just kill the guy in his house. We don't bring him back here and put him in prison. That's insane. But, for a lot of this stuff, this puts the press in a position where they do have to talk about it like it is new because they no longer have plausible deniability. Right? So the Trump administration has suggested it plans to expand its military operations against suspected drug traffickers to other land-based targets. The announcement from Ecuador suggests a new front for its military offensive. Wednesday's announcement comes 2 days after General Donovan, the head of the U.S. Southern Command, visited Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa and his defense ministers on March 2nd in the capital of Quito. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, Ecuador has seen a spike in homicides and other violent crimes as criminal networks made inroads to the country. Previously, Ecuador has had some of the lowest rates of violent crime in the region, earning the country a reputation as an island of peace in Latin America. But experts say the leap can be attributed to a number of factors, including high youth unemployment during the pandemic, economic instability, and a desire to exploit Ecuador's strategic location on the Pacific coast between major cocaine producers like Colombia and Peru. Well, I think I just had 2 hiccups and now they're gone, maybe. We'll see. Noboa, a right-wing leader who's been in office since 2023, campaigned for re-election last year on the pledge that he would tamp down on the uptick in crime. He's become closely associated with the mano dura, or iron fist approach to law enforcement. Trump, too, has encouraged Latin American leaders to be more aggressive in their handling of criminal networks, and both Noboa and Trump have threatened Colombia, led by left-wing leader Gustavo Petro, for allegedly failing to comply. On March 1st, for an instance, Noboa plans to raise tariffs on Colombian imports to 50% as punishment for failing to crack down on cocaine trafficking. So this just kind of cements the deal that Ecuador is now basically a vassal state, a puppet state of the U.S. government operating in Latin America. Island of peace? No wonder the USA ruled in. We hate that. Yeah. You know what else is called an island of world peace? Is Jeju Island, where the United States committed genocide against communists in South Korea. Ooh, 7-stream streak. Thanks. On Wednesday night, General Donovan praised the Ecuadorian military for their unwavering commitment to the fight against narco-terrorists in their country. Together, we are taking decisive action to confront narco-terrorists who have long inflicted terror, violence, and corruption on citizens throughout the hemisphere, he said in a statement. President Noboa, who has hosted Trump administration officials like Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem multiple times over the past year, also welcomed the increased collaboration. We're beginning a new phase in the fight against drug trafficking and illegal mining, Noboa wrote on social media on March 2nd. I bet you are. I wonder why the United States might be interested in mining in Ecuador. Oh my god, we have so many people on streaks. Yay, yay, yay. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. The security of Ecuadorians is our priority, and we will fight for peace in every corner of the country. To achieve this peace, we must act decisively against criminals wherever they may be. Still, critics responded to Wednesday's announcement with skepticism and alarm about the increasing U.S. military operations overseas. Brian Finucane, senior advisor at the International Crisis Group think tank, wrote on social media that the U.S. has yet to clarify what the role in joint operations was and what its targets were. My sense is that some of the administration have been itching to put U.S. military boots on the ground somewhere for an operation against narco-terrorists and then publicly brag about it, Finucane said. Ecuador was more amenable than, say, Mexico. So Ecuador was like, yeah, we'll work with you. We're right-wing kooks, too. The ICG, though, International Crisis Group, I need to look at them because I kind of know a lot about them, but I can't remember why. Do you ever have that thing where you're like, I know this name. What is up with them? I need to look at their funding. There's something about him, about where this guy's from. I gotta look it up. I'm so sorry. We gotta do this. We gotta look. Okay, yeah, here it is. All right. So this group is funded by a bunch of the oligarchs, the bourgeoisie, the oligarchs, the ruling class. They do this shit. The Koch Institute, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace gives them money. The MacArthur Foundation, the Rockefeller Brother Fund. Remember, the Rockefeller worked with the CIA. The Rockefellers worked with the CIA, rather. So, yeah, they are super linked in with that kind of liberal... Now it's the world of the Democrats, right? We remember how more billionaires gave Kamala Harris funding for her campaign than Donald Trump. We've really started to see that for most billionaires, the Democratic Party is the party of them. So it seems like a lot of these billionaires are wanting to fund basically the business as usual kind of administrative state nature of the Democratic Party's leadership style. So this is very fascinating. So all the rich guys are broken up as well, right? Some of the rich guys support Donald Trump. The tech rich guys are really into supporting Donald Trump right now. That's why we saw the weird shit happen with Greenland that they were super into. But the non-tech rich guys are really skeptical of Donald Trump's leadership style. They think it makes him a loose cannon. So the rich guys fund this international crisis group, and now they're out here talking about Brian Finucane saying, oh, this is just bad Trump policy. So this is an example of the girls are fighting. The rich girls are fighting, right? The rich girls are fighting. This is a very, currently today, very liberal-minded group, even though historically it was not necessarily. It's a business-as-usual branch of the bourgeoisie. Does that make sense? There's a branch of the bourgeoisie that is very like blow it up, wild, wild west. We do whatever we want. That's the Elon Musk version of things. That's the Silicon Valley version of things. And then there's this old school version of the bourgeoisie that's like, no. We do things with decorum because decorum is good for the market. It leads to a balanced market that we can predict and we can manipulate as we want. Right? The rich girls are fighting. Where's David? He would love that. Right. Meaningful split on if you should have decorum while committing atrocities. Exactly. They still want to do bad shit, right? And this is why we talk about this all the time. I've talked about this on the stream before. When people are like, well, aren't you happy that Donald Trump defunded all these administrative state elements that the Democratic Party loves so much? We might have talked about this even yesterday, I think. USAID, National Endowment for Democracy almost got their funding cut. All the USAGM branches. It's like, no, it's not like he's not going to do bad shit. He's just going to do bad shit different, right? So... and that's what the Democrats don't like. They're like, no, do bad shit the way we usually do bad shit. What? This is too unpredictable. So we have here, what is this story? Diplomacy under pressure. Okay, so this is a story from 6 days ago as well. And this says, on March 4th, 2026, the government of President Daniel Noboa declared the Cuban ambassador to Ecuador, Basilio Antonio Gutierrez Garcia, a persona non grata, and ordered him and all diplomatic personnel to leave the country within 48 hours. So they are really becoming our vassal state down there. Ecuador is like, Donald Trump, we see what you're doing. Sign us up, we're ready to help. We are you, but down here in Latin America. Who do you hate? We hate them too. You hate Cuba? Yeah, fuck them. We'll get them out of here. So this is really the development that's taking place, right? So at the same time, Quito withdrew its own ambassador from Havana, leading to a rupture or freezing of bilateral relations. So this photo is a group of citizens protesting in front of the Cuban embassy in Quito following the expulsion of diplomats. The demonstrators carried banners and chanted slogans such as Cuba defends itself and Cuba yes, Yankees no, rejecting the government's decision. Oh, we got a good one. Godsneck 101. Do you know you're a shill for whomst? Whomst am I shilling for? For whomst? Inform us all. Let me know if he figures it out. He's got to figure it out. He's thinking. He's like, is it Russia? No. Is it North Korea? They don't really have money. They're poor. Who could it be? Is it MAGA? No, they're talking about how they hate MAGA right now. Who could it be? He's really trying to figure it out. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. He is thinking about it. He's actually telling, he's not commanding you. He's actually saying what he's doing. He's thinking about it right now. He's working on it. I'm a shill for big proletariat. Use your words, chatter. Think about it. Who aren't I shilling for, really, at the end of the day? I mean, that's such a good question. I'm out here shilling for all the greats. I'm shilling for Marx. I'm shilling for Lenin. I'm shilling for Engels. I'm shilling for Cuba. I'm shilling for North Korea. Shill the specter of communism. Get phantom bucks. I'm shilling for the narco-communists. We got it. We figured it out. We solved it. I'm here shilling for the narco-communists. That's who I'm shilling for. Not the trots. Not the trots. I'm getting that Engels money. Exactly. I need an Engels. So, back over here, in the real world, not whatever delusion this random person stumbled into our chat and made up. The Ecuadorian Foreign Ministry invoked Article 9 of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, which allows for the expulsion of foreign diplomats without the need to publicly explain the reasons. However, the lack of concrete justification has generated widespread political debate both in Ecuador and internationally. The Cuban government rejected the decision, calling it arbitrary and unjustified, and warned that it constitutes an unfriendly act that affects the historical ties between the two nations. I know. I am a billionaire and my life is very easy. I have no problems, no struggles at all. Money? No object to me. I just roll around in piles of money every day, all day. It's actually what I do. When I tell you actually that I have to go to work after this, what I mean by work is I have to go to a giant bathtub full of money and just roll around it in circles for like 8 hours till the money's all over my body with its dirty money circulation dirt. You know? That's what I do. Clocking into work. Roll around in the money pit. I'm really Scrooge McDucking. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm just swimming through the money. Okay. It's a little old school, isn't it? You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, hold on. I had a video I was posting specifically about this kind of thing. Oh, it posted. I wonder if he came from that. He was mad. He was real mad. I made a video where I was just like saying the most baseline left-wing political takes, like imperialism bad, fascism bad, socialism good, and people are like, what the fuck? What's wrong with you? It's very, very funny. Okay, so back over here, basically, this is signifying a major shift, though, because we know Ecuador didn't historically always have a super right-wing government, right? This is relatively new, and that explains why there's people here who are very, very upset about this new right-wing government's maneuvers. So relationship between Cuba and Ecuador, it's gone through complex stages, but for the last few decades, it's been characterized by cooperation in social areas, particularly in health, education, and vocational training. During the progressive governments of the early 21st century, especially during Rafael Correa's presidency, bilateral ties strengthened considerably. Cuban medical and educational collaboration programs were implemented in Ecuadorian communities, while Quito supported regional positions favorable to dialogue with Havana and against the U.S. economic, commercial, and financial blockade. Even during the periods of historical tension, like the diplomatic crisis of the 1980s, the two countries maintained channels of communication that allowed them to reestablish ties. Therefore, the complete expulsion of the Cuban diplomatic mission represents the most serious deterioration in relations in decades. We did a little fundraising thing for the flotilla a couple weeks ago over on my TikTok. The measure generated mixed reactions in Ecuadorian politics. Opposition sectors criticized the government's decision, calling it unnecessary and automatic alignment with foreign interests. Former President Rafael Correa, for example, denounced the expulsion as a disgrace and questioned the current government's foreign policy. There were protests, blah, blah, blah. Why did they make this decision? Obviously, here they go. They just say it. Strengthened alignment with the United States. That's it. Why? Strengthened alignment with the United States. They are becoming consciously and intentionally, under this guy's watch, Daniel Noboa, a U.S. vassal state, a U.S. client state, right? Comrade Thuggin knows. Whatever Comrade Thuggin said about my finances, that is correct. Trust that with your life. So, a shift in the regional chessboard, diplomatic crisis emerging. What does this mean? The United States cannot do what we do without these vassal states around the globe. And I think that's important to remember. We, in many ways, we are like, what's the term? It's like a paper, is it like a paper tiger? What's the term when you look very, very strong, but there's actually a lot of weakness exposing itself through the cracks, right? We have the world's largest military. We are very, very dominant and very, very aggressive. We have a history of doing horrific things. But there are some things strategically we cannot accomplish without puppet and vassal states around the globe. And if you think about the threat that communism and socialism pose to the United States government alone, paper tiger, yes, thank you, paper tiger. Would we really be that threatened if there weren't danger of the whole system actually collapsing on us? And this is what really comes to mind. It's like, why do we need Ecuador? Why does Donald Trump need the Board of Peace, right? Why do we need Israel? And we need Israel, and not the other way around, probably. We both need each other. It's mutual. But the thing we need Israel for is just that it's a strategic military base for us. That's it. That's how simple it is. People have all these conspiracy theories about the Jews controlling the world and other anti-Semitic bullshit. No, we literally just use Israel as a military base. It's not even that interesting, right? But these kinds of strategic locations that pop up around the globe, that's why we have these vassal states there, because they help us carry out our operations against other people in nearby areas, because we couldn't do it without that military base there. That would be very, very hard. First time chat from a raider. Oh, we got raiders. Dope boss. 1, 2, 3. Yay. Welcome. Who's our raiders? I missed it. Raiders. I did not see. Oh, Kairos Rev. Okay, yay. Welcome everybody. So yeah, I mean, we need this though. We need our little guys around the world as our little base of operations when we do this shit there. Lenin raided South Korea. Yeah, South Korea. entire nation states exist just to prop up U.S. hegemony. Israel and South Korea leap to mind. And that's why when Ukraine says we want to be like Israel, we know what that means. You want to be a vassal state of the United States. That was part of what the whole coup attempt was in 2013, 2014. They wanted to align themselves. A certain section of Ukraine wanted to align themselves more with the EU and the United States, right? That's what they meant when they said that. They meant many things when they said that, but that's part of it. So, yeah, Ukraine is going to be one pretty soon. And it's interesting because it seems like, I don't know, we talk about this all the time. Like, Zelensky seems to not know he's a patsy. And it's a very interesting dynamic to watch play out in real time. There's so many Israelis in Latin America right now. I have seen a bunch of Israelis are traveling and getting really upset that they're not welcome anymore. I also saw, did you guys see the video of the woman from the United States who went to I think Ireland. It could have been Scotland though. I want it to be Ireland because it's so much more poignant if it's Ireland. And everyone, when she walked in, they were like, who did you vote for? And she was like, I don't really want to talk politics. And then she's like, everyone was like so mean. And so of course all the liberals are like, that means you voted for Donald Trump, you psychopath. And it does. It very obviously fucking means she voted for Donald Trump. It was Northern Ireland. It was. Okay. All right. See, I did make it up to be better in my head. Like, you're going to go to Ireland. Come on, babe. And so, obviously, that does mean you voted for Donald Trump. We all know that, because the Kamala Harris voters are so proud. And they're so proud. They shouldn't be. They should be just as ashamed, in my opinion. But they're not. They're proud of that. They're like, I voted for the lady doing ethnic cleansing. I'm a good one. I am good. Yeah, I voted for the woman who came off the last administration and assisted in slaughtering brown children in Palestine. So I'm safe. I'm safe for you to be around. Don't worry. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers. North of Ireland. North of Ireland. North of Ireland. I'm an ally. North of Ireland. North of Ireland. I have to say that because as somebody from Ireland said north of Korea when talking about Korea in my chat. And I'm like, you know what? Yes. Yes, I need to remember to be that diligent. I need to remember to be that diligent. Yeah, so it's pretty funny because she was definitely pro-MAGA. And it's like, these people are right to hate you. But the thing that's like lost on everybody is like, how much better would it have been if she had voted for Kamala Harris? And I think people in other countries, some of them don't realize how right-wing our Liberal Party is here. They know Liberals are right-wing because they're the right-wing party where they live. But they don't realize how right-wing the Democratic Party is as well. And if they did, I wonder if that would make them feel safer around Americans, right? Yeah, Kamala Harris campaigned on having the most lethal military in the world and said that all options were on the table to deal with Iran, right? We'd probably be at war with Iran right now with Kamala Harris as well. And, you know, people in the north of Ireland do not know that, I'm guessing, because the who'd you vote for question communicates this idea that there would be someone better to vote for. And don't get me wrong, it's pretty good for weeding out the people who supported Donald Trump and the violence and slaughter happening right now. But I wonder what would have been an acceptable answer to the people in that bar where that happened. Would Kamala Harris have been an acceptable answer? I don't know. Right? So that's an interesting thing to consider. And that's also something I think about a lot. We've talked about this before on streams as well. But, you know, when I look at a liberal and a Republican, I kind of look at them the same way, right? Unless the one is outwardly a bigot and just being like, yes, I love hating people from marginalized backgrounds. That is my whole identity. I look at them the same way, which is that you are complicit in harm and violence that's going on in the world. And it is because you are not sufficiently class conscious. You don't understand what's going on. You have no clue what system you're participating in. And the onus ultimately isn't on you, right? The system doesn't exist because of you, but you are feeding into it. And we need to get you out of that system immediately. And liberals do not have any grace for conservatives, but expect us to have all the grace in the world for them. And the reality is that the only way we can have grace for liberals, knowing about the violence and destruction that liberal agendas promote around the world, means we also must have grace for conservatives in that same way. Otherwise, we could not. It's all or nothing. It's like we're either nice to both of you guys, and we accept this as a systemic thing we fight to overcome, or we just say fuck it to both of you. You're on some sinister shit, and we don't want to be party to it at all. Right? And I think both are valid. Very, very interesting. Ireland supports Kamala. Okay, yeah. Very, very fascinating, though. Hard to have grace for liberals, and they think liberals and leftists are the same. I know, it's hard. It is hard. It is hard because they act smug. They act righteous. They act so much better than everybody. And you look at them and you're like, I saw you remember when there was that natural disaster in the South here in the United States, and the liberals were all over social media saying they were happy that these red states flooded, and the floods affected camps along a river, children's summer camps, and children died. Like, lots of children died in those floods, and they're like, well, that's what they got. They voted for Trump. And you look at that, and you're like, and I'm supposed to believe you're the good guys. Like, I don't understand this. You're so much better than them. You're so much better than them. Right? What's going on? North Carolina, Tennessee. Thank you. Oh, okay. Bye, Virgo. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Evil. They're evil. They're fucking evil. Yep. And it's hard because you're like, okay, if I have to be okay with you, how can I look at a MAGA Republican voter and be like that? But them, no. Right? At a certain point, you have to decide if you think these people can be fixed and are worth saving, or you don't. And again, I understand both perspectives. I do. And for me, sometimes it depends on the day. The day of the week will catch how sympathetic I am to these people or not. Okay, so with all these stories, what info do we have about more info on Ecuador to give us some kind of context for this? Now, I have actually a pretty long summary, a lieu of an abstract, brief excerpt of the content. And this is this book that I kept finding pop up over and over again that I was interested in about this. In the Shadows of State and Capital, the United Fruit Company, Popular Struggle and Agrarian Restructuring in Ecuador from 1900 to 1995. This might be enough overview, this excerpt, for us to understand kind of the context of the United States, the West, corporate interests, imperialist interests in Ecuador. So we're going to read through this really, really fast. And again, this is from 1900 to 1995. Ecuador's economic history is characterized by booms and busts of exports in cacao, the banana, and petroleum. In the Shadows of State and Capital traces the history of the United Fruit Company in one of the most productive agricultural zones in the world on Ecuador's southern coast, and the transition from enclave capitalism to contract capitalism. Striffler, the author, specifically examines the role of landless peasants in shaping the transition. Through organization, the use of state agencies, and persistence, peasants and former employees of United Fruit acquired land that belonged to the company. What ensued was a process by which contract farming in the hands of local capitalists replaced the multinational corporation and its enclave in Ecuador. In short, multinationals contracted large landowners who employed poorly paid, non-organized, landless laborers. Such a system allowed multinational corporations to maintain control over the production process but avoid the risks involved in direct employment. The focus of the study is the Hacienda Tinguel. United Fruit purchased Hacienda Tinguel in 1934, lost land and peasants and ex-workers in the 1950s and 1960s, and joined other multinational corporations in controlling the production process through contracts with local capitalists in the mid-1970s. Throughout this transition from the multinational enclave to contract farming, Ecuadorian and international planners have viewed Tinguel as a microcosm of economic and political processes affecting the nation. Through a combination of research based on United Fruit archives and interviews with former employees, Striffler shows how the events of one hacienda were affected by global politics, national fears of communism, and conflicting interests in the state. A significant contribution of this study is that it shows not only how global capitalism affected local peasants, but also how local peasant activities helped shape global capitalism. The analysts go beyond the paradigm of a strong, weak state in allowing the penetration of multinational corporations. Rather, Striffler shows that the state itself is fragmented and constituted by actors with conflicting interests. The strength of the work is the focus on the role of the individual actors in the process of land invasion, cooperative formation, legal recognition, and the subsequent loss of autonomy to the state and local capitalists. Striffler carefully analyzes the role of peasant organizations, labor unions, students, lawyers, Catholic priests, Spanish activists, multinational corporations, hacendados, local capitalists, the police and the military, and the relationships between these different groups. He traces the changing politics of the Ecuadorian Institute of Agrarian Reform and Colonization over time, and the effects of these changes on peasant autonomy and access to resources. So I just think that this is really interesting. So the book is divided into two parts. I would like to read this book. I think this would be a very interesting book for anybody interested in learning more about Ecuador. I probably won't be able to get to it for a while. I've got a big book backlog I'm getting through right now. But, it talks about the United Fruit Company and Ecuador. It talks about the unique brand of capitalism that developed there as a result of these multinational corporations coming in, right? And what else do we have here? The author pays careful attention to the effects of the plantation on constructions of gender as well. United Fruit viewed the nuclear family with clearly separated gender roles as a way to maintain a stable labor force. I Actually, this sentence is wild. So major corporations view nuclear families with clearly separated gender roles as a way to maintain a stable labor force. I think that that's really something we have to hit home, right? And this is like, that is the truth. And we all kind of know it. But to just see it written out, I think is powerful and a good reminder that all, and this is something that's actually talked about in chapter 1 of Capital, how the mode of production is a social relation, right? This is exactly what that's referencing. All of how society is set up is around the idea that this thing has exchange value and a rich guy can make money for selling it. And that goes down to the establishment of the nuclear family. All the way down to that, right? First time chat for Raider. You told your Marxism professor that anarchists don't read. He didn't think that was an acceptable excuse to get out of class. That's funny. How many books do I read every year? It depends on the year. Some years I read more, some years I read less. I don't know. It really depends. And it depends if I fly more or less. When I fly more, I read more. So year before last, 2024, I was going to New York reliably 1 week, every month to see my partner out there because I had a good savings account and I could afford to do that at the time until I ran into some financial kind of emergencies and don't have a savings account anymore. So when I did that, I was reading a book like every flight, right? And it was really, really easy. So that, and then reading books at home as well. But sometimes not. So yeah, this is very fascinating. So it is a United Fruit place. This book seems interesting. Oh, here again, for anybody who wants to screenshot the title of the book, And the Shadows of State and Capital, the United Fruit Company, Popular Struggle, Agrarian Restructuring in Ecuador. Yay. This is my, communism is when no gender. I mean, unironically, maybe. Like, if you read some of Engels' work, you're like, that's why when you look at these homophobic communists, you're like, bro, did you read the text? Did you read the text? I am pretty sure the future of communism is gay. I think it just is. Yeah. Communism might unironically be when no gender. So, popping over to what we have. Oh, wait. So, Malrich says there's very good YouTube essays on the Ecuador death squads and the origin of the term Banana Republic. Yeah. And for anybody not familiar, the simplified version of a Banana Republic is literally just like the banana companies or your government now have fun, right? Which is crazy that there's a clothing company called Banana Republic now based off of this. Absolutely fucking wild. Communism, you mean gauge? Gauge? Absolutely wild. So, we have some info here from Liberation News about updates in Ecuador. None of them are super, super recent, though, but they might help give us some historical context. So, we have something going on from 2006 that was happening in Ecuador. And this had to do with a Chevron Texaco chemical genocide going on. So we have a history, a track record of using Ecuador basically for whatever business ventures we want to play out. Textbook imperialism, right? Like we do with a lot of Latin America. So this article starts as follows. Pits the size of football fields filled with the choking sludge of oil and dead animals. Children suffering from leukemia at 4 times the national average. Birth defects and miscarriages soaring. Drinking in bathwater polluted by carcinogens for hundreds of square kilometers. The unhindered oil pollution of Ecuador's pristine rainforest began in 1964 and lasted for almost 3 decades. Sorry. When Texaco Oil walked out of the country with $30 billion in profits stashed in its pockets, it left a toxic legacy for 30,000 rainforest dwellers that was 30 times worse than the Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska. Ooh, posture check. Hydrate. From 1964 to 1992, the U.S. corporation dumped in excess of 18.5 billion gallons of acutely toxic produced water into more than 650 open and unlined pits, as well as directly into the swamps, streams, and rivers that make up the Amazon rainforest of northeastern Ecuador. The byproduct of drilling produced water contains some of the most dangerous known chemicals, including benzene, toluene, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. DJ Felafel, I'm an American, so we do time shifts. What are they called? Daylight savings time. So it will always be the same time, Pacific Standard Time. But Pacific Standard Time will change because we have daylight savings time. If that makes sense. So usually it's from 9:30 to 11:30 is when we stream. Sorry for everybody that confuses. Okay, so we've got all these basically dangerous chemicals getting released by American corporations into the Ecuadorian land. The result has been what environmental experts believe to be the worst case of oil pollution on the planet after Chernobyl, possibly the second worst environmental catastrophe in human history. Texaco chose not to use the standard oil industry practice of firing toxic waste back into the bored well cavity in an operation called reinjection, and it saved between $1.5 and $4.5 billion in operating expenses in a conscious and rapacious decision to choose profit over the lives of the local population. Texaco's home state of Texas has laws requiring reinjection that go back as far as 1919. So when we look at what it means for the new right-wing Ecuadorian president to align himself with the United States and Donald Trump, it's in alignment with these kinds of policies. It's saying, yeah, come on in, destroy our country, do whatever you want, United States, like you historically have done, right? In 2002, Chevron took over Texaco and inherited its Ecuadorian devastation, but the company failed to live up to CEO Dave O'Reilly's promise to develop affordable, reliable energy supplies in a safe, environmentally responsible way. Or Chevron's website's claim to conduct our business in a socially responsible and ethical manner, forcing 5 indigenous groups under the aegis of the Amazon Defense Coalition to file a class-action, multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the oil giant in 2003 that many legal experts believe will prevail. So again, this is back in 2006 that this article is from. We're giving a little bit of a historic ramp up to give us some context for Ecuador in general. Chevron does not deny that Texaco dumped the toxic waste into the rainforest, but defends its position by maintaining that the Ecuadorian government released it from further cleanup operations after a fraudulent remediation program that did nothing to offset the damage Texaco had done to the environment. The cleanup remediation program cost Texaco no more than $40 million and basically involved covering open dump sites with topsoil, allowing the toxic content of the waste pits to continue seeping into the water table, contaminating the drinking water of many thousands of rainforest inhabitants who have no choice but to slowly poison themselves as they consume the water and bathe in polluted streams. Aside from birth defects and a high rate of child leukemia, hundreds of people have already died from cancers relating to oil carcinogens, and many hundreds more are expected to succumb. One of the attorneys on the joint Ecuadorian-U.S. legal team is New York-based Steve Donziger, and he says the remediation work was more of a cover-up than a cleanup. They just took dirt and ran it over the pits without cleaning them out. An independent environmental agency, E-Tech International, determined that Chevron's waste management practices in Amazon would never have been permitted in the United States, and that an area like the United States would basically have been deemed unfit to live in based on U.S. environmental law. So this is why we do this. We go run these corporations in other countries where we can just do all our bad shit there. And it's in hiding and it's in secrecy and nobody knows, and it's because we dehumanize people in other countries. So this is the history of the American relationship with Ecuador, and that's why it's important for us to understand what it means for the right-wing president today to be working with Donald Trump and to be condemning Cuba and basically going all in on this path of neoliberal capitalist collaboration. Donziger's story is insane. Texaco court sentenced him to basically indefinite detention. Texaco got a court to do this. Wait, this is crazy. I didn't know about this. Let's look this up. I found an article in The Guardian about this. So Chevron was accused of polluting the Amazon for 26 years. The only people who've paid the price are a human rights lawyer and those whose land was poisoned. So this is going on, like, this is just as bad as Chernobyl. This is the summary as well. Donziger took on the case. They did not dispute that the pollution occurred. Jury trial in the U.S. might have put Texaco under an embarrassing and costly spotlight, so the company lobbied for the legal proceedings to move back to Ecuador, which has no jury trials and is heavily dependent on the oil industry. Texaco argued that Ecuador had a fair and competent legal system. A U.S. judge agreed to relocate the case on the condition that Texaco accept the verdict of the Ecuadorian system. Texaco's maneuver backfired. In 2011, Donziger and the plaintiffs won the case there. An Ecuadorian court ruled that Texaco, which had been bought by Chevron at this point, was responsible for vast contamination, according to the New Yorker, in order to pay $18 billion in damages. And this is after the article we're looking at. So this is 2022 is recapping what ended up happening. So when he was like, hey, this looks like it might win, this is what ended up happening. They did win, and we're going to get to an and then. Both parties appealed the decision. Chevron said it was illegitimate and unenforceable. And it relied heavily on testimony by an Ecuadorian judge, Alberto Guerra, whom Chevron relocated to the U.S. and, as of 2015, paid $12,000 a month. Guerra testified that the plaintiffs had bribed him to sway the Ecuadorian judgment against Chevron. They literally are bribing him, though, to say that, and we know that. That's crazy. Guerra later recanted much of his claim, admitting, Vice News reported in 2015, that there is no evidence to corroborate allegations of a bribe or a ghostwritten judgment, and that large parts of his sworn testimony were exaggerated, and in other cases simply not true. Vice News, of course, we know, became the mouthpiece of, the creator Gavin McInnes became one of the Proud Boys, right? Alt-right guy. So, very, very interesting, all of this. Let's see what ended up happening. There was some suing going on. Ecuador was told not to enforce the judgment. Chevron's asking for money back. And then there's Donziger. PR advisors for Chevron promised to demonize Donziger in the public eye. The oil company hired private investigators to track Donziger, created a publication that smeared him, and put together a legal team of hundreds of lawyers from 60 firms who successfully pursued an extraordinary campaign against him. Donziger spent years of his life fighting seemingly endless litigation. In 2011, Chevron sued Donziger and members of the lawsuit in a U.S. court for $16 million in damages, accusing them of extortion and invoking a sweeping and controversial statute originally created to fight the mafia. Chevron's case rested in large part on Guerra's since recanted corruption claims. Donziger and his co-defendants denied the charges. Chevron ended up winning the suit. The company demanded that Donziger turn over his phone and computer to their legal team, and after he refused, arguing that it would violate attorney-client privilege, the judge in the case charged him with criminal contempt of court. The U.S. Attorney's Office declined to prosecute him for contempt, so the judge in the case made the extraordinary move of appointing a private law firm to represent the government in prosecuting Donziger, a development that 2 U.S. senators called highly unusual and concerning. The senators also noted that the firm appointed to prosecute Donziger previously represented Chevron. He was deemed a flight risk, and he spent more than 800 days under house detention with an electronic ankle bracelet. That's wild. And Donziger eventually lost the contempt case, which he called a charade. He reported to a federal prison to begin a 6-month contempt sentence. He still cannot make a living as a lawyer, cannot collect any legal fees from the Ecuador judgment, and had to wear an electronic ankle bracelet until last weekend. This is from 2022. This is so wild. So this is what corporations can do to you in the United States if you try to take action against them for poisoning your land. Wow. So this is what's been going on in Ecuador. So this is not nothing. This is not nothing. Now, let's talk about the genocide claims from this 2006 story. The U.S.-based environmental group Amazon Watch has called the Securities and Exchange Commission to investigate fraud allegations against Chevron for failing to disclose the Ecuadorian lawsuits to shareholders. 30,000 indigenous people have fallen sick one by one in the Ecuadorian rainforest. And basically, Steve Donziger is calling this chemical warfare and genocide. No good deed goes unpunished, right? An important example of what actually threatens capitalism. Look who they punish and for what. Exactly, by any means necessary. Yep. If you are threatening capitalism, capitalism will threaten you right back. And that's how you really know what's going on. Right? The Francis Fukuyama article saying the DPRK was right for having nukes. Possibly. Professor from Johns Hopkins University. I really think the tide is shifting on, oh, this is somebody else. I'm seeing a lot of articles about it. Daily NK posted about it. What did Daily NK say? I'm on the Daily NK website looking. Oh, no, this is old. This is from 2006. This is from 2006, so this has been a claim, is what we see. For chat. Everybody look at this. Mallory sent 2 very funny Australians talking to Donziger about what happened. Very, very interesting. But I do feel like the tide is going to start to turn on North Korea now. I think people are really going to start to notice and pay attention and see and understand why North Korea is the way it is. I think I've already started to see a kind of a shift in dialogue about that. And I think people being really receptive to seeing Kim Jong-un humanized, just like, yeah, he's got a daughter, he's a normal guy. I think that there is some sort of shift going on. People are softening to it. Yeah. Bitrate bad, hella glitches. Really? Is that something I control? I changed it all to everybody's commands last time. Everybody told me what to do. Fine for you? Okay. Okay. So in 2008, we also see that Ecuador approved a new constitution. And it was a pretty left-wing constitution. And this makes sense coming off of what oil corporations had been doing to them for a long time at this point, for decades at this point, right? So a new progressive constitution was approved in 2008 with 65% support, even in districts with strong right-wing opposition. The majority of the people still voted in favor of the left-wing constitution. The constitution addressed LGBT rights, environmental rights, and gave the state greater control over certain sectors of the economy like oil and mining. This all makes sense when you know what happened to them in the rainforest there and with Texaco Chevron. It also guaranteed pensions for housewives and free education and healthcare for all. So 2008, Ecuador is a banger of a leftist country, apparently. They're coming out with all this shit. We didn't even fucking have in the United States LGBT rights guaranteed in any capacity. We still don't have that at a federal level. So this is major. Cuba, also worth noting, in 2019, formally included LGBTQ rights in their constitutional overhaul. So these countries that the United States government is attacking have a history of left-wing politics that would be bad for American business, right? Cuba, clearly. Ecuador, even, until the current president, yes. Speaking to supporters of Guayaquil, Correa said today, Ecuador has decided on a new nation. The old structures are defeated. This confirms the citizens' revolution. So they were really having this left-wing government revolution up until the current president, right? Very, very fascinating. And here we have an article from 2015 following this that says 8 years of progressive struggle lives on. Much of international media at the time was focusing on Ecuador, highlighting the street protests by the right wing against President Correa and the Citizens' Revolution movement, that left-wing government we just talked about. The protest was triggered by the introduction of 2 proposed laws meant to continue the goals of the popular government to redistribute wealth to the country's poor and fund much-needed social programs. So what is the United States' interest in Ecuador? Right? It is supporting the right wing there and making sure that these kinds of left-wing movements don't become popular again. The new inheritances and capital gains tax laws were presented by the executive branch to the National Assembly for approval in early June, and it triggered protests of several hundreds demanding an ouster to Correa. Okay, several hundreds. Population of Ecuador. Gotta get a read on how silly this is. Okay, it's like 18 million people live there. So a few hundred rich dudes got mad. 18 million other people seem not to have a problem with it. So, all right, good to know. 17 million. Okay, 17, 18 million. And this is what happened there. And they were basically targeting people who inherited around $100,000 a year, $70,000 to $141,000 a year. And a new tax would come of 7.5%. Anything higher than that would be 17.5%, and then go up to 32.5%. And then if you got over $500,000, it would be taxed at 47%. And then if you got over $849,000, it would be a 77% tax. This is major. Think about what this would do in the United States. This is wild. Now, in what has become an all too common tactic by the right wing in Latin America, from the protest against Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff to the violent anti-government marches in Venezuela, the right wing has picked up left-sounding slogans. I wish I could this is another one, tattoo this on my fucking forehead. The right has picked up left-sounding slogans. Down with dictatorship. Democracy now. End the corruption. How do we text this to every liberal we know? Right? The right wing is tricking you into thinking these are liberation movements by using these phrases, and it's fucking working. It's working on liberals. It's working on liberals. The same liberals who are like, down with the dictatorship in Venezuela, in Iran, right? Never mind the fact that what happened, you killed the supreme leader of Iran, and what happened? They just replaced him. And guess what? Their government continues to function because it's not a fucking dictatorship, and they had a president and a fully elected fucking parliament. Right? So that's not a dictatorship. Venezuela, what happened? The vice president just became president. Why? Because it wasn't a dictatorship, and it turns out they had a full fucking elected government, right? And this is what's happening. These liberals here in the United States are falling for it. I've been telling them this. You are falling for the MAGA of other countries. You are supporting the MAGA of other countries. They are tricking you. And you are too stupid to realize you're falling for it. And this is exactly what it is. Left-sounding slogans. Down with the dictatorship. Give us democracy. Who are they appealing to? Liberals. Liberals. And liberals in other countries. Liberals in the United States. Right? This is what it is. These fucking dumbasses. So, Trump said yesterday we killed all of their leaders in Iran. All of the whole parliament. Everybody's dead. They're all dead. Trump killed everybody in Iran, I guess. It's so wild. Like they're doing it with the Uyghur stuff. They're doing it for Iran and DPRK and Cuba and Venezuela. Yes, London's best gay. Exactly. And these fucking liberals are out here supporting these psychopathic right-wing freaks because they happen to throw in buzzwords like dictator, democracy, right? Authoritarian. And the liberals are like, oh my God. Oh no. Where do I sign up to help your genocide? Right? It's crazy to watch happen. It's just crazy to watch happen. It's wild. So the classless character of such an approach to the socialist movements, whether from the left or the right, allows for a wide international audience, especially by pro-imperialist media who consciously avoid contextualizing the struggles in the different countries where progressive and radical governments have taken office in capitalist states. So really, this is what it is. Everybody in the United States assumes protesting the government is good. The media is not telling you when things like this happen, like, hey, this is actually a left-wing government and the protesters are right-wing freaks. They're not saying that, right? This is a tactic similar to those used in, Ukraine 2015. This was 1 year after the coup in Ukraine. Tactics similar to those used in Ukraine, yup. Libya, yup. And Syria, yup. Where well-meaning but naive individuals were swept into joining the right-wing demands for changes in government while completely avoiding the question, what is the class character of the government that will replace the current one? I mean, yes, well-meaning but naive individuals get swept into joining right-wing movements. Oh, welcome. Welcome, Raiders. Hi. Vorlo, welcome. Hi. Wife Guy Raid. Welcome, Wife Guys. You're safe here amongst the gays. The gays accept you. Yeah. The article, you want me to post the link? Okay, this is an old one, so this is from 2015. But this has some bangers. And again, this is where I tell you guys, the people who think the PSL is a soft-lived party, I've never gotten that from any of their writing. They're the real ones. And so was FRSO, but FRSO didn't have anything written about this, so that's why we're on this. Okay, so I posted the link here. Yes. So, unfortunately in Ecuador, right-wing populism is further strengthened by ultra-left forces like the Frente Unitario de Trabajadores and the Confederación de... I never know if I should do the accent or not. Like, should I actually speak it with an accent or should I speak it like a Valley girl? In the United States, it feels almost offensive to do the accent. And I never know. But the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, both of which represent large and influential sectors of working and indigenous groups. Oh, share screen, thank you. Got you, we're on share screen. So, it's only offensive if the accent is bad. Maybe that's the thing, I don't know if my accent is bad or good enough for it not to be offensive or not. Okay, it sounds better when I do it. Okay, it's fine. All right, we'll do that. These forces have pushed for a program independent of what they consider the moderate and pro-capitalist one of the Alianza País and the Citizens Revolution movement. Maintaining a revolutionary and independent program of the progressive social movement of Latin America is one thing, but during the most recent wave of protests, these groups have found themselves chanting and raising the same demands as the right wing. Correa fuera. Correa out. Okay, so what can we learn about the United States from this? Because I just feel like this is a lesson. This is a lesson coming to us, right? That's what this feels like. The ultra-left forces end up chanting and raising the same demands as the right wing. I'm just like, yes, this is what we were always fucking talking about. Yes. And this is why anarchists end up repeating State Department talking points, right? This is why the Trotskyists and the left comms end up being compatible left. You don't threaten the government. Your actual material demands align with the right wing a number of times. you're engaging in anti-communist, sometimes anti-communism, sometimes even as a person calling yourself a communist, right? What's going on here? Horseshoe theory confirmed. But it's the centrist approach. That's the idea of fishhook theory, right? It's the fishhook theory idea is real. It's not horseshoe theory. When you're so middle of the road, when you're so, the far left is just as bad. They're these like fascists too. They're red fascists or whatever the fuck. You end up just supporting right-wing status quo. It's wild. Absolutely wild. You think should go longer tomorrow? I can't. We're literally leaving to drive to Colorado at noon tomorrow. So I can't go any longer tomorrow. I'm so sorry. I'm not able to. I'm even squeezing in tomorrow because I'm going to be gone so long. I'm very, very sorry. No, you can be bossy with me. That's fine. I don't mind. Not this anarchist. Then again, you fight fellow anarchists more than any other leftist. Maybe you're one of us. I know, yeah, we're doing a road trip. We're road tripping it, yeah. Because my partner's a little nervous about traveling with their gear. They don't have a good travel setup yet because they don't play a lot of out-of-state shows. So they've only played in Arizona before this. So it's kind of like a thing. Colorado mention. Yeah, so nice to have a car in Colorado. Yeah, so we're taking my car. We're taking old Kia with 150,000 miles on it. So pray for us. Just got it serviced. We should be fine. Of course, the international pro-imperialist media, as well as the national and regional capitalist media, were more than happy to point out that many workers and indigenous groups had joined the right-wing opposition in calling for the ouster of President Correa. My partner just plays, like, electronic music. They go by CRTR. So it stands for Can't Read the Room. So CRTR. It's, like, acid trance music, I guess, I think. Not acid trance. Acid something. I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of electronic music. I just listen to theirs and I'm like, this is cool. This sounds like 1999. I had this period where I was like 12 years old when I used to sneak out of the house in 1999 and the year 2000 and go to raves. And my partner's music sounds like the music they would play at those raves. But when they play a show, usually the other music on the like show, I'm always like, I don't really like this. I really like my partner's. You literally got in Erica's face when you called the communists. I was working with red fascists. I literally said it's solidarity Westerner. Thank you, right? And here's the thing, like, I actually appreciate anarchists in action. I think that anarchists, well, we as communists are very, very disciplined, and we know we're fighting a long-term game, and we don't support adventurism, right? That's not a Marxist-Leninist thing. Anarchists are really, a lot of when we talk about the working class, the masses, it is the anarchist position. I don't mean this to be rude, but they don't have a super strongly formed ideology. They just know they're mad. And that really is a lot of the sentiment of the masses. And so it's easier to be around anarchists when you recognize that they truly in many ways are the voice of the masses. And we can understand as Marxist-Leninists that we don't find them to have a disciplined theoretical outlook necessarily like we do. Not all of them. Some of them, yes. But a lot of them. But in that way, it is easier to have more sympathy and empathy for them and understand the anarchist position as just the general anger of the masses. That's it. And so that's why when I'm in an action in particular, I like it when anarchists are there. Because I'm like, these are the people with the rage. We are the people with the discipline. They are the people with the rage. And together we balance each other out in a lot of ways. Which I think is really interesting. So, thank you, London's Best Gay. Yeah, I feel you guys can all check out my partner's music. If you like the beat boops, my partner does the beat boops. They're very nice and cool. It's important to note, coming over here, that the two major workers and indigenous groups, the CUT and the FENOCIN, the Confederación Nacional de Organizaciones Campesinas, Indigenous y Negras, the National Confederation of Farmer, Indigenous, and Black organizations, have come out clearly in support of President Correa while maintaining principled criticisms of his administration. These are only two of the many social movement forces who have backed President Correa during the time of right-wing destabilization, which threatens the significant progress made by poor and working people in the past 8 years. Hi, welcome guys who are late. We're talking about Ecuador. So we're giving a little backstory to what's going on with Trump and Ecuador. So Trump's involved in Ecuador. The new government there is really right-wing. The right-wing government came from a response to a left-wing government. The left-wing government came in a response to Exxon and Texaco, ruining the environment there with mass oil spills and pollution issues. So it's this very huge back and forth that gets us to the point we were at today. Today, the right-wing government there is aligning himself with Donald Trump, and it looks like engaging in further demonization of other left-wing governments in the area, including Colombia and Cuba. Now, what I'm curious to know is how much the United States government had a role in these protests that were happening against Correa, the previous left-wing kind of leader, in the 2015. That would be my guess. So we're just kind of going through some documents that are like the history of what has been happening in Ecuador in recent years to get us to this point. So, the Citizens' Revolution 8 years strong. So, the last article we looked at, for those of you who are here, was them signing a new constitution, them having this new left-wing president, finally, which is going to be them fighting back against places like Exxon, right? Totally destroying their country in the name of imperialist American finance capital, right? So they had this kind of new vote for a left-wing government. They passed this new constitution that's going to protect everybody, that's going to give housewives pensions, give everybody free health care, that's going to protect LGBTQ people, that's going to protect the environment from mega corporations like ExxonMobil. And then 8 years later, what happens now? We have these right-wing protests against the left-wing government. Now, this article says there are plenty of reasons why the right would love to see an end to Correa's government, that left-wing government that emerged from this. In 2007, the percentage of people in poverty based on income was around 36%. It dropped to 22% by 2014. So these efforts that this government was making to redistribute money was actually raising people out of poverty. More than 1 million Ecuadorians were lifted out of poverty in 7 years. Meanwhile, extreme poverty was reduced from 16% to 8%, cut in half, according to the National Statistics and Census Institute. David's going to stay at my house and watch the pets. So Fork and Zay will be here with David. Howdy, howdy. Lesbian hot sauce. Hi, welcome. In urban settings, the reduction was from 24% to 16%. And in rural settings, it was a staggering drop from 61% to 35%. So again, the people in the countryside, the rural poor are usually the people, just like in Venezuela, here they benefited the most. These statistics show that poverty has been reduced in both the cities and the countryside. Between 2007 and 2012, the South American nation reduced its Gini index, the Gini coefficient, that's like the number that measures inequality, from 0.55 to 0.48. So this is like a scale where 0 is supposed to represent complete equality. Imagine a country of 2 people and you each are completely equal in every way. 1 is supposed to represent complete inequality. Imagine a country of 2 people and one of you has everything and the other person has nothing. That's what the Gini coefficient measures. So they had one of 0.55, so over the halfway mark, where more unequal. And they reduced it to 0.48, so more equal than not, which is good. Compare this to the rest of Latin American countries, which on average reduced their coefficients by 2 points from 0.52 to 0.50. Aside from the enormous reduction in poverty rates, the current government is also recognized for investment in public services. Last year, a record was reached when $8.85 billion was invested into the public sector, a figure that can be multiplied by 7 compared to what was invested in 2006. According to the National Secretary of Planning and Development, more than $12 billion was invested by the government in the healthcare sector in the last 8 years. Around 20,000 new medical professionals were trained. And remember, this is after, 7 years of them making healthcare a human right there, giving everybody free healthcare. Oh my god, what if I had David do the stream on my computer? That would be so funny. He would hate that. He wouldn't do that. So, while all the major regional economic and political bodies have stood firm on the side of Correa, there was concerns that his political destabilization campaign would lead to violent protests like the one Venezuela has had to face for more than a year now. Their right wing obviously rising up its time against Chavez. Oop, hydrate, hydrate. Due to concerns that the right-wing populist movement could gain traction, claiming repression and lack of democracy, on June 16th, the government decided to temporarily halt the passage of the Inheritances and Capital Gains Tax Law. Correa and the National Assembly approved a call for a national dialogue period to start on September 15th, where intense debates and discussions are expected on the proposed laws. This period of dialogue is expected to last a minimum of 3 months. To quote Correa, "We want debate, not screaming. We want arguments, not manipulations." All this should have been done in the assembly, but it has been impossible with such disinformation and violence generated. While this article is focused almost exclusively on the internal situation in Ecuador, what should not be side note is the role the U.S. is playing in the region. Here we go. This is what we want to get into. In March, the White House asked Congress to approve $2 billion to continue intervening in Latin America. This is more than a 34% increase from the previous year. More than half of these funds are targeting Central America, but in the proposal, it explicitly states that other funds will be designed to promote freedom of press, human rights, and the promotion of democracy, buzzword, 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 capitalism, 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 in Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Ecuador. Okay, so this is, remember I was like, I want to know how much the U.S. had a hand in these protests? Yeah, it's the playbook. We're doing the playbook. We did the playbook, right? If you guys watched the video I had, Could You Survive Not Getting Cooed by the United States? This is one of the things in the playbook. Now, all of a sudden, there were right-wing protesters in your streets, right? Calling you a dictator. What do you do? And we see they're doing the exact same thing. So what is happening in Ecuador cannot be removed from what is happening in Venezuela, where a similar effort to destabilize the country has put major strains on the Maduro government and the Venezuelan people. And the U.S. desperately wants to regain control of its perceived backyard. This is what drove the 2009 coup in Honduras, which has made it the most dangerous country for journalists and unionists. It's what's driving the Merida initiative in Mexico, where a supposed drug war, which is really a war against the people, is leading to a horrific human rights violation. Kunzler C says, I recently read a great book, We Will Be Jaguars, a memoir of my people by Namote Nankimo. It's relevant to the current conversation. Highly recommend it. Thank you for that. Everybody check that out. The courageous anti-neoliberal and pro-sovereignty movements in Latin America, which emerged from militant left-wing struggles of the 70s and 80s, has made many fighters of that era into heads of government. These governments have offered an alternative to the national comprador bootlickers and transnationalist imperialists whose decades of plunder in the region left the masses in extreme poverty. As fighters in the belly of the beast, our first and foremost struggle is to expose the imperialist politics of intervention in Latin America and stand in solidarity with the governments that raise the banner of the poor, dispossessed, and oppressed of our sister region. The contradictions and criticisms that arise inside any movement and struggle must be resolved principally in the same country by the individuals and organizations who live and breathe it. Our stand in solidarity to remove the weight of imperialism from their backs is essential so they can fight freely and continue raising the banners of socialism and independence. Okay, so they got a left-wing government that started being bad for American businesses, and the United States pumped a lot of money into propaganda and election fraud, basically, to try to create a right-wing anti-government movement masked as a populist movement that actually did successfully trick some left-wingers. That's what happened. And that's what happens everywhere. That's what happened in Ukraine. That's what happens everywhere. Everywhere you see this happen. In Ukraine, and actually it was pretty successful. That's how they ended up with their fascist government they have today, right? So, very, very interesting. This is our playbook. We did it. Now, what happened next? 4 years later, Ecuador's masses are rising up against neoliberal policies. On October 2nd, Lenin Moreno, president of Ecuador, signed a series of economic austerity measures to drastically cut back on social spending in order to access a $4 billion loan from the IMF. This is what happens. They're like, join the IMF, take a loan, take a loan, take a loan. We're strangling your country. Take a loan from the IMF. Don't you want to? And then once you're like, okay, we need the money, they're like, you must cut every social program you have. All the beautiful things that these people fought for in their constitution, the pensions for housewives, the free health care, right? All of that's going to get scraped away in this maneuver that we're going to see once the IMF shows up in Ecuador in 2019. So the Decree 883 eliminates state-funded fuel subsidies, a staple program for the past 45 years, as well as major cuts to public sector salaries, benefits, and pensions. The price of gas, the major fuel source across the country, immediately spiked up over 123%, unleashing a wave of protests in response to calls from major trade unions and transport workers to strike just one day after the measures were announced. So this is what's going on. And a rightward shift. Decree 883 was the catalyst for Ecuador's ongoing mass mobilizations and yet another example of a stark rightward shift in Ecuador under President Moreno. So it turns out the U.S. government, the National Endowment for Democracy, which I'm sure was operating in Ecuador, let's just fact check that though. Do you guys hear Zay? I think Zay wants to go in the bedroom and sleep. National Endowment for Democracy grant to NDI in Ecuador. What year is this? 2008. So this is right when they passed their left-wing constitution, right? So this is what the United States got to work doing. And here we go. To help increase the prospects for development of a sustainable, representative democratic system to not have socialism in Ecuador. So the National Endowment for Democracy, which is the CIA, we know that, right? They were created by the CIA. And if you guys want a big backstory on that, I have a podcast episode about that. Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. Look up the National Endowment for Democracy. I think it's called like the CIA but cuter or something like that. That is up there. You can learn all about that. This is an NGO that the CIA created. They are congressionally funded to this day. So Congress, basically, is giving money to this group in Ecuador around the same time that they passed their super left-wing constitution that's now going to protect them from American corporations destroying their land like ExxonMobil did. Right? And it says that they're going to work to build a sustainable representative democratic system, capitalism, in Ecuador. And they want to work in 3 marginalized regions to promote constructive civic dialogue and represent political parties, capitalism, right-wing political parties, in order to help channel citizens' interests during the Constituent Assembly and eventually the general elections to be held under Ecuador's new constitutional system. They want to get people interested in right-wing capitalism and neoliberal economic policies through propaganda funded by the U.S. Congress. That's what this is. That's what this means. National Endowment for Democracy, CIA NGO funded by Congress. And we know that. And I can show you guys that. If you don't know that, I have a quick link to it actually in my North Korea document because they fund so much stuff about North Korea that it's absolutely wild. So I have this here just for the sake of having everything in one place for you guys to see. Where is it? We're going to open this for you. Oops. Here is the article that came out in 1991 that interviewed Alan Weinstein about the CIA shifting its focus into the National Endowment for Democracy again. So this Washington Post article, you can look up if you would like. Innocents Abroad, The New World of Spyless Coups. This is all about them shifting how the CIA did business into the National Endowment for Democracy instead. It also talks about how Gloria Steinem was a part of the CIA, and how the American feminist movement was actually backed by the CIA to replace a left-wing socialist movement. The Constitution, what is this one? Yes, one second. Let me make you a tiny URL. It doesn't let me copy and paste it in my own chat, so I have to make a tiny URL for anybody new here. I always think people must be so confused when I'm doing it, and it's so I can type it easily for you. So for anybody new to this, the National Endowment for Democracy, this article will tell you all about it. And here we go. Weinstein, who helped create it, says a lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA. And it is still to this day funded by Congress. They even last year had an injunction to prohibit the federal government from withholding funds for the National Endowment for Democracy. That's how important it was. So it is still congressionally funded. And you can see their congressional funding records every single year. So that's what this is, the National Endowment for Democracy, right? And they are the ones giving money to this group in Ecuador to basically try to destabilize their left-wing government and get people interested in a hyper-capitalist neoliberal right-wing political agenda. Carl Gershwin was a Trot. I didn't know that, but that makes sense. There's a reason why we call Trotskyists the compatible left, right? They don't actually threaten capitalism or imperialism around the globe, right? So they gave $350,000 US, which I want to remind you is in 2007 money and in Ecuador. So think about how much $350,000 was, first of all, in 2007. That would be the equivalent, apparently, of around $560,000, $500,000, right, in Ecuador. And how many US dollars does the average person in Ecuador earn per year in 2007? The national gross income per capita in Ecuador was around $6,000 a year. So this is what I was trying to get you guys to think about how far this money actually goes. So this is in 2023, 2007. Ecuador monthly earnings was $400 a month. Okay, so $400,000 or $400 a month compared to $500,000 in funding. Now think about that in terms of U.S. money. This is going to help you understand how far this money goes. All right, today. 48.16. So the average American today earns around 48.16. This is to give us a reference point. Sorry, I'm American, so it's always going to be American. Or roughly 12 times as much as what the average Ecuadorian earned back then. So if we take a look at that money, right, that they earned back then, that $350,000 times 12, it's the equivalent of like $4.2 million in US money. That's how it's going to spend in Ecuador. This is, this is quick math to give you a reference point. It's not perfect, but this is so you can really conceptualize these numbers. Because propaganda is cheap. And $1 American dollar goes far in other countries. So when you look at this, you're like, that's not that much money. It's the equivalent of $4 million in how it spends in Ecuador at that time, right? $1,200 a week is more than I make as well. For anybody who's like, whoa, the median income for an American is $1,200 a week. That's high. Yeah, it's higher than what I make too. Yeah, the internet tells you I'm a millionaire. So that's what we're up to. That's what we're doing. And that is what is leading to, we talk about it here, what we're doing, countering authoritarianism in socialist places, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. This is what the National Endowment for Democracy says they're up to. Let's see if they talk about Ecuador. Yep, democratic governance. Here we go. And they say on their own website that they are meddling in Ecuador. The National Endowment for Democracy, meddling in Ecuador. So, this is what is contributing to this rightward shift when we talk about this, right? It starts to happen after they suddenly get a left-wing government and a left-wing constitution. Okay, wait, let's see. International chatters have to adjust to American because that's what we talk in the stream. Yeah, that's what I mean where I'm like, I'm sorry I'm American, it's all in American dollars. It won't be super helpful to you if you're not. That's why I do that. Oh yeah, the Omidyar Corp. Yeah, Omidyar is the billionaire guy from eBay and PayPal, and he has the corp which founded the ICIJ, yes, and created the Panama Papers and Chinese cable, and also was super, super active in the coup in Ukraine. Had the umbrella group in Ukraine, the UCCA, I believe is what it's called. UCA? Yeah, it's live. Hi, welcome. You're live. Don't quote me on the letters. I get the letters wrong. But the Omidyar Group is also really active in the coups and destabilizations in Ukraine that happened in 2013, 2014. Very fascinating. So this is what's contributing to this new right-wing push after they get their left-wing government. And now what does that lead us to today? We have, this is Lasso, right? This is a more right-wing guy, pushed by right-wing officials. Lasso is somebody who had previously worked at Coca-Cola in the 1990s, right? So next thing you know, we're pushing them further right. They've got protests against their left-wing government. They're funded probably by National Endowment for Democracy dollars, based on we know that the National Endowment for Democracy was funding those sorts of initiatives. And then what do you get next? You get a guy literally from an American corporation there. During the time, Coca-Cola was allegedly hiring hitmen to kill union organizers in neighboring Colombia. Lasso took over the company's Ecuadorian operations, and then what happens? He becomes president. So the USA starts pumping money into Ecuador to stop the spread of this left-wing government movement. And next thing you know, this country that had just been trying to fight off American corporations like Texaco, Exxon, now is led by a guy from an American corporation, Coca-Cola. Oh, that's real. You don't know about this? Oh, yeah, this is real. We talk about this. I have a podcast episode called Coca-Colonization, all about this, if you want to check that out as well. And we do talk about Coca-Cola in Latin America. Yeah, very, very destructive. So, yeah, this is the story. So what we're looking at, the story in Ecuador is the same story we see everywhere. Everywhere that tries to do any sort of left-wing government that's bad for American business, right? So this is what happens. A vicious opponent of progressivism. He's fighting against progressivism. Rafael Correa came to power in 2007, stabilized the economy and the political situation for a decade, and Correa's administration canceled predatory IMF loans, kicked the U.S. military out of the country, and harnessed much of the country's natural resources for the benefits of the working people. Remember, this is after we saw that whole thing happen with Texaco ExxonMobil destroying Ecuador. Lasso reemerged as a political figure in stark opposition to the gains of the citizens' revolution under Correa. He was unable to win his first two presidential runs due to the popularity of the Correa movement. And during the course of his campaigns, further evidence of his corruption was revealed, including Florida-based shell companies containing 144 properties worth over $30 million. So this guy's a USA guy. He's tied to the United States, right? In 2012, he formed the Creating Opportunities Party, and he ran against Correa twice, in 2013 and 2017, on an explicitly anti-Correísmo, is what they're calling Correísmo platform. He enjoyed a symbiotic relationship with right-wing media and a notoriously corrupt polling firm, Sedatos. So this is another thing you guys have to remember. Whenever you see these polling numbers, oh my god, everybody hates the left-wing government there. That's fucking fake. That's usually some National Endowment for Democracy shit. That's not real. When you look at Maduro, the elections, everybody in the United States is talking about how the elections were stolen. Maduro didn't even win his last elections. I know people who went and were election monitors down there. I've worked with orgs who went down there and did election monitoring and were like, those elections were real and valid, right? So how do we end up with all these stories that they were actually fake? Through basically these corporations and foreign governments like the United States owning the polling firms that poll people. Yeah, I'll link this as well. One second. This is this one. Oh, good luck, Smash Ultra. I hope it's a good and not a scary. So, this is what's going on here. Lasso's agenda is business as usual, austerity and repression. Austerity measures, again, that's the IMF shit that comes out. It's like, do not invest in your country. Do neoliberal privatization of everything instead. And a Lasso administration in Ecuador will be the embodiment of a nothing will fundamentally change ethos. Lasso has postured as relatively tolerant on issues like abortion and LGBTQ rights. Remember, in 2007, they codified LGBTQ rights. I believe it's 2007 or 2008 in their constitution. Maybe 2006, when they passed their new constitution we talked about earlier, right? But he's a member of the highly conservative religious order Opus Dei. He is unlikely to publicly support any socially liberal initiatives. He also has paid lip service to environmentalism. He has to, because Texaco destroyed Ecuador. But he actually is not going to be somebody who cares about this when he's president. We will see, right? So he's following a neoliberal path of IMF loans, budget cuts for social services, and privatization. And that's what gets us to where we are today. So when we look at what's going on in Ecuador today, I'm already running late, so we're going to have to wrap it up. It is such a microcosm of everywhere. It's Ecuador, but it could be half the countries in Latin America. It could be Ukraine. It could be half of the countries who were targeted in post-Soviet kind of takeovers to avoid socialism. It could be anywhere the United States had an interest in. Anywhere that the United States wanted to do business, but their government was too left-leaning. So this story about Ecuador and what's going on there today, where we have a right-wing president who is cutting off diplomatic ties with socialist neighbors, who is supporting the United States in painting Latin America as full of drug-crazed narco-terrorists, right? This didn't come out of nowhere. This came out of American corporations destroying Ecuador, the people in Ecuador rising up to fight back against them, specifically oil companies, Texaco, ExxonMobil, and then the United States seeing this left-wing populist movement growing against them in Ecuador, them actually having a president win with left-wing politics who wanted to create a new constitution that protected the people there and protected their environment from American corporations. The United States then using our favorite method, the National Endowment for Democracy, to pump a lot of propaganda funding into Ecuador in order to bring about a right-wing movement against the popular left-wing government there. It takes a few years. The right-wing candidate had to run 3 times. Why? Because you don't change people's minds overnight. Propaganda is slow and insidious. It takes a few years. In Ukraine, it took 3 years. 2010 is when we really started aggressively doing the same exact system, National Endowment for Democracy, pumping a ton of propaganda dollars into Ukraine to make the Ukrainian people there, who previously had been more Russian-aligned, hate Russia and like the West instead. We started that in 2010. By the end of 2013, around December, is when the right-wing protest movement started breaking out against the government there in favor of more Western-aligned business opportunities. This is exactly what happened in Ecuador as well. It took a few years. It didn't happen overnight, but it took them some time, and they did manage to change the opinions of the Ecuadorian people to turn their backs on left-wing politics and present this faux right-wing populism to them that they seized onto. And that today has led to them obliterating the social programs they previously had under their left-wing president, who had given them LGBTQ protections, free healthcare, all of these social services. those were obliterated and the doors were opened up again for right-wing corporations in the United States to come in and take over Ecuador. And that really culminated with the hiring of a Coca-Cola executive as their president, right? With business holdings and business interests in the United States, in Florida. The jokes write themselves, right? And that was Lasso. And then now we get this new right-wing president building off of that tradition who's cutting ties with all their socialist neighbors and helping Donald Trump do imperialism in Latin America. So that's the story of how we got here. And again, it is the story of Ecuador. It could be the story of half of the countries on the planet. This is the system. This is the process. And what I tell people, the CIA has one playbook. The United States government has one playbook, and it's only got a few plays in it. Once you train yourself to look for these patterns, you will see them everywhere. You will see them everywhere because we're not creative. We don't need to be. We have a tried and true system and it works. And the American public, the Western world falls for it all the time. When that article was talking about how the initial right-wing protest movements popping up against the left-wing government in Ecuador had these phony populist messages. Down with the dictator, right? Oh, we hate authoritarianism. We want democracy. These are all buzzwords. Down with the dictator. What's a dictator mean? It means you have a left-wing government who doesn't want to give the United States carte blanche to come destroy their country. What does authoritarianism mean? It means that you don't have capitalism, right? Or you're defending yourself against the U.S. government, right? Either of those things. What does democracy mean? That means capitalism. That means neoliberal capitalism. That's what that means. But these words, they work on people. They feel left-wing. And they work on left-wing Westerners. Here in the United States, they work on leftists even in the United States borders. And so when we look at what's happening in Ecuador, the history of this, and we look at Iran, and we look at building the Ayatollah, a religious leader, up to the figure of dictator. We look at what's going on in North Korea, where you have the guy who's the head of the Workers' Party, which is certainly a very, very important job in North Korea, and the head of their State Department, which is certainly a very, very important job in North Korea, certainly not in charge of the entire government. They have a full electoral model, right? They have an executive branch, which is what we consider our leadership here, with a totally different person in charge, Pak Dae-sung. They have a fully elected assembly with 3 different political parties represented. We look at that, we call it a dictator too. It's the same playbook getting used everywhere. Worth noting, this isn't just the global south either, though, Malrash. Half of Europe has this shit too. The destruction of the NHS in England springs, yes, to mind. Exactly. And we tried to do that in Europe too. And Europe is starting to realize, like yesterday's episode, we talked about Europe. Europe is starting to realize that, holy shit, like, we're getting played by the USA too. And they just woke up way too late. This is what's going on here. All of these issues are related. It's 10:56. I have to jump off. Is there anybody before we go that we should raid and get on over to? Now that we have been thoroughly mind-filled. Mind melded. We've mind melded with each other over Ecuador. That's the one. Yeah, I'm gonna do that one. I'm gonna do the Star Trek one. Larry? Should we do Larry for Touché Tuesday? We just read Larry every day now. I love Larry though. And it's Larry's birthday. It's Larry's birthday. We have to raid Larry, right? We have Ned maxed, National Endowment for Democracy maxed over here. So now go Touché max with Larry. That's what we're doing. Birthday raid. Everybody tell Larry happy birthday. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow, but it'll be my last day for the week, remember, because I'm going out of town. Okay, bye everybody. Love you all. Did I do it right? Fuck, I did it wrong. I always do this. Aha! I did it right. Now you're going.